A good while ago, while I was working at the bar, my coworkers and I put on tap a keg of Sierra Nevada's Poptropica IPA. This strange pair of words, hop and tropical, made me think of something I hadn't thought of in quite some time. An old game I used to play. A game played by millions in my generation, yet left to rot as of late. Poptropica. For those of you not familiar, Poptropica was a free online children's adventure game created by the author Jeff Kinney. You may know him as the guy who said he's going to write the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series until he dies. The game featured a map full of islands to explore, each with different themes, settings, and stories to travel through. One island might have you attempting to land on the moon, while on another, you could get hired as mall security. You may have to survive in the harsh wilderness of the northern woods in one scenario, while in another, you may have to survive in the harsh wilderness of the game development cycle. Poptropica was updated quite frequently, with new islands coming out every few months or so, and each one unique enough that I and tons of other kids would always come back for more. You could also join multiplayer common rooms, customize your avatar known as a Poptropican, buy items and fun abilities with in-game credits, and more. Seeing that IPA's somewhat similar sounding name inspired me to go back and play through the Poptropica Islands once again, just to see how well the game held up. There was always a thought in my mind to do some kind of Poptropica related video, and I figured about now was the high time to do it. So there you go. That's the explanation for this video. Why don't we take a look through the vast world of this game and rank all 53 Poptropica islands. This ranking isn't in the F to S style tier list I've done before, but rather a worst to best format where I start at the island I despise most of all and work my way up, getting more positive as I proceed. Before I start this ranking, however, I must clarify a few things on islands that I am or am not including. Crisis Caverns and Greek Sea Odyssey are two islands I have never played and will never be able to play since they were part of the short-lived Poptropica Worlds, a spin-off game made in Unity that has since become lost media. I mean, I tried to play it through an Android emulator, but I could never get past this home screen and I don't know if it even works or not. These two islands are listed on the wiki, but technically, since they're not even islands that would have been a part of the OG game, I'm not bothering to count them. In their place, however, I am taking two of the mini-quests in the original game that I feel function as their own standalone islands, despite being side adventures that technically don't count. But this is my list and my video with clips from my streams, so I get to make the rules here. Alright, let's get this party started. I hope you guys enjoy, and without further ado, here's my ranking of all 53 Poptropica islands.
That's it? That's the last place?
Poptropica Island?
That was just a
Cheap tutorial! I had to think for a good while about which island I would consider the worst of all in Poptropica. Let me tell you, it wasn't easy. There was a ton of them during both my childhood and my live-streamed Let's Play that I just couldn't find much satisfaction in exploring. I think there are some islands above this slot that I do hate more, slots that genuinely pissed me off both as a kid and an adult. But they at least have stories. They at least have themes. They at least are an execution of an idea. This one's just boring. It doesn't really have anything of interest at all. At the bottom slot, I present to you Snagglemast Island. Snagglemast Island is a tutorial island for the game. It is for new players to go through and learn how to play the game. You collect a bunch of coins, and then that's it. You're done. Not much else. It's bland, it's flat, it's nothing. Well, it had a few things that were kinda interesting. There was an NPC wearing an old advertisement hat of the girl Sabretooth from Ice Age, and there were other players running alongside me. I don't know if they were real or not. Probably not real. Other than that, I didn't get much out of it. I couldn't even complete the goal of the island, to collect a bunch of coins. Normally, with Poptropica Islands, if you beat them, you can restart it, but with this one, they don't even give you the option to do that. So completing it was just walking from point A to point B. I didn't complain much. It wasn't hard or annoying. But what intrigue did I achieve from it? What sense of fulfillment? Nothing. I moved on from it pretty quick. I'd say it's fine for its purpose as a tutorial island, but that's not even true. For some reason, it was the replacement to a predecessor that did the same job much better with a far more interesting premise. We'll see it later in the list, obviously. I don't know, guys. I just can't put this island any higher than last place. Moving on.
Hot dogs, that's what I got. Hot dogs, nice and hot.
If you were at all familiar with Poptropica as a kid, you'd know all about the advertisements. Being a free game and all, the developers had to get paid somehow, and that way was through interactive ad areas. I remember playing a few, like the one for the 2012 Lorax movie or Toy Story 3. My old Poptropica character actually still has the Percy Jackson pen sword saved from when the Sea of Monsters movie was being promoted. Now, playing an emulated version for my stream on Flashpoint, since the current version is a butchered shell of its former self relegated to a Cool Maths webpage, I didn't have to worry about these ads at all. As a matter of fact, you could tell where they would be if they were still there, but nonetheless, they were gone. Now, why am I giving all this preamble to the 50-second slot? It's to say that I'm not the biggest fan of these sore spots in the game that visually don't fit and throw you into the middle of a story that you could not give two damns about. Unfortunately for me, about 20% of the islands in Poptropica are dedicated specifically as brand tie-ins, and the lowest of the low, in my opinion, is Galactic Hot Dogs Island. I know nothing of the graphic novel that it is based on. There are panels from the graphic novel on the island that you can read. I didn't really care to. This will be a recurring theme throughout these types of islands, by the way. I don't have any personal vendetta against this story or anything, and I can't say without a doubt that it's entertaining or not, because again, I haven't and don't care to read it, but man oh man, I was out of it playing this level.
Something's wrong with the warp drive.
What the butt?
Oh, this kid's edgy. The crew has been scattered throughout the galaxy. I'll help you search for them. I don't want to find them though. I kind of want them to all get lost in space. I don't care. I didn't like any of the characters or the predicament that the story gets them in. Oh yeah, spoilers for literally every island in this game, by the way, before I delve any deeper. I forgot to mention it earlier. You're running a space hot dog stand or something, you steal nuclear power to cook some wieners, and then a warp in space-time or some shit teleports everyone away to different planets that you have to locate. It's not terribly terrible gameplay-wise or anything, but I just could not get into it, both from my younger and older playthroughs. I don't know these three who are in peril, so I don't care to help them that much. It feels like a chore trying to do the fetch quest simply because I don't care. I don't feel like saving Pointy Hair Kid from space pterodactyls, nor Princess Bubblegum from some rocks, nor Hellbilly Hulk from farting mushrooms. Something else that peeved me off about this island was simply that it has the same trend as many of the other tie-in islands, a completely different art style. Now, I'm an artist. I appreciate when art looks different. It makes the creative world much more enjoyable to look at. I can't say that I hate the art style of Galactic Hot Dogs, but it does not fit Poptropica in the slightest. Almost all of these kinds of islands do this thing where they take the original style from the books and utilize it in-game, which I get. It looks like the original, makes sense to me. But it contrasts so heavily with the incredibly wonderful and specific style of Poptropica's art that it never feels like I'm actually on a Poptropican island. It feels like I'm green screened into a commercial, which I kinda am. This is not a problem for all the tie-in islands, as we'll see later in this ranking, but here I feel like it probably stands out the most compared to the other ones. Also, I think one of my gripes with this one is a little more petty. It was so close to the end of Poptropica's island list before the game was mortally wounded with 2020's end of Flash player support that I just have a grudge against it for wasting what could have been an original island idea. I don't know. Maybe you'll think I'm being unfair. Frankly, my dear viewers, I don't give a damn.
Disappointed!
Reality TV Wild Safari Island was one that I had never played prior to my Poptropica live streams. I heard about it before, but for some reason, probably a membership paywall or something, I was never able to play it. I was excited. I mean, this was a sequel island, something that we rarely got in the game, and a sequel to Reality TV Island nonetheless. To spoil a little bit, that island is much higher on the list. The only current way I was able to play it was on Steam for $20. I mean, it's not the only island exclusive to the Steam version. There's also Snagglemast Island. Oh dear. Well, it's got my original account saved on it with all my old items and info, so I guess that might be worth the $20. Oh, it doesn't even have full screen capability. That's why it looks like this, by the way, if you were wondering. Alright, let me just cut short the story of how I wasted a hard-earned $20 on this game and say that it was not good. Quite disappointing, I must say. First, the intro is pretty lackluster. The original island took place in a small desert town where you send in an application to star on Reality TV Island, which is just the Poptropican version of Survivor. The intro is simple, but fun, where you get to learn the established rules of the island you're on and what to expect of it as it progresses. Wild Safari just drops you into the scenario with no context other than, you know how it is. Granted, I wouldn't think you need too much of an intro given that most people who've played the game prior know the rules of Reality TV, but some kind of stronger prologue would have been nice at least. It's just such an unceremonious sequel. It doesn't justify its existence other than taking place in Africa now. It's kinda neat that you get to choose your competitors though. That wasn't an option in the original. I got to go against Myron Van Buren, a character from a much better island, the goddamn Grim Reaper himself, and Jojo Siwa. Others I played against included Lady Gaga, Bob Ross, and even... oh, that one didn't age quite so well. Besides that little decision making, I was also able to change difficulty, which was also a new feature. Unfortunately for me, I picked the hardest by being too confident. The competition wiped the floor with me, and I was ready for a rematch to earn my medallion. Oh wait, huh? Oh, they just give it to you because it's quote-unquote a Poptropica thing. This part pissed me off the most, since the island medallions before this are earned, not just given out because they feel bad for you or something. For context, every time you beat an island on Poptropica, you're rewarded with not only in-game money, but a medal to wear proudly around your neck, showing your skill to overcome its hardship. You have to win that medallion in the first reality TV. I don't feel special for sitting dead last in the competition and still getting rewarded for it. What else to say? There's only like 3 minigames. Maybe there's more, but I couldn't get anything but the same 3, whereas the original had enough variety to feel like a new experience each time. It's much shorter than the original, which is saying a lot considering that the original is amongst the shorter islands of the game, so you don't spend a lot of time getting to play other than if you want to continuously replay it. If there's anything I have to sum up my feelings on reality TV Wild Safari Island, I'm kinda mad and pretty disappointed. Timmy Failure Island is bland and I don't like it. It suffers a lot of the same flaws as Galactic Hot Dogs Island in that it's a brand tie-in for an existing work, and that's kind of all it feels like. It doesn't fit visually with Poptropica, and the story is incredibly unfitting as well. You're trying to help the main character, Timmy, retrieve his shorts from the garbage truck. That's it. I appreciate some of the goofy humor, and I'll admit it got a chuckle or two out of me, but I barely remember anything about it. It was probably the Poptropica island I remembered the least about, despite knowing that I had played it previously in my teens, and even my synopsis of its main quest is something I had to look up again. I just played this game on stream, this year, and I don't really remember anything about it. Something I do remember was that there were several glitches that happened when I tried to use the kid's pet polar bear, long story, as a trampoline and would have to reload the game, but I'm not sure whether to blame that on the original version or the fact that it may have some code hiccups from being ported to Flashpoint. As with the other tie-ins, I won't blame the source material for this island's blandness since I haven't and don't care to read it. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. Either way, this island is boring and I will probably forget about it again.
Everyone, I have some bad news. Halloween is canceled.
Okay, so this is a little bit different than the last couple of islands since I'm actually familiar with the source material. It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Or, sorry, it's the Great Pumpkin Island, Charlie Brown. I don't have any complaints about the Peanuts comics, their characters, or even their cartoons. They're charming. Charles Schultz was cooking up some wholesome comics about a bunch of weird kids, and I loved them growing up. That being said, this island sucks! It's just reenacting the Great Pumpkin cartoon special where you go trick-or-treating, Sally is let down that Linus got her hopes up, and Charlie Brown gets a rock, and that's it. I don't even hate the Great Pumpkin special, I just was hoping to see somewhat of an original story. To me, it felt like fan fiction, which I guess you could see being the case for the others in this type of island, where the same exact events played out, but my OC, Green Bean, was hastily shoved in. It didn't have incredibly fun mini-games, except maybe taking down the Red Baron with Snoopy, and they kinda just end the island like, "Oh, thanks for finding my brother asleep in the pumpkin patch, here's a reward, I guess." I won't call it objectively terrible or anything. I mean, I definitely felt the Peanuts charm playing through it again, but I am and have always been incredibly biased against these islands since they don't fit in with the rest of the game at all. As a matter of fact, most of them we'll get through shortly here. There's a few brand tie-in islands that I actually enjoyed plenty that make it into the top half of this list. Just 2 out of 9. At least it gets better from here.
I think we should join the darkness.
Goofy, what is this decision motivated by?
I'll give Goofball Island a little bit of credit in that it has an interesting premise. It's an island split down the middle between grayscale characters who are in a bland, mundane life, and colorful characters who are in a lively, well, goofy life. You have to solve a mystery about why and how some people in the goofy part of town are turning bland, and it's really not that compelling. At least to me. There's plenty of islands in this game that revolve around a mystery of some wrongdoing that's happening, and I think the reason I enjoyed most of those more is that they give you plenty of time to ponder on the mystery. This island is incredibly short and doesn't feel like I'm getting that much suspense out of it. Again, credit for the original idea as well as a unique choose-your-own-ending style of conclusion, but otherwise, it's just kinda meh to me. The best part of this island is when my live chat got into a heated debate about how to end it and extended a choice that could be done in 30 seconds into an argument for over 10 minutes.
Wait, now there's 3 for bland and 3 for balanced. Well, now what do I do? It's not. Wait a minute. Well, now you've changed it from goofy to bland, so there's a 3 to. Wait a minute.
The kingdom of far, far away was finally at peace. Oh, goody for them! And they lived happily ever after!
I wish Fairy Tale Island was better than it is. It has so much ambition and passion that clearly went into it, but overall it's just not that good. As one of the last islands that ever came out of Poptropica, you can see where the steam started fading in production quality. Not in animation, let me be clear, that's the best part of the island. You get to see some really fun cutscenes play out, which is not something you can say about the vast majority of the islands, and it's very entertaining. I love the premise and some of the twists as well. It kinda has a Shrek vibe going on, where classic fairy tale stories are subverted from their typical ending into a twist, though the execution here could have been a bit better. Instead of waking up from a kiss of the prince, Snow White wakes to the kiss of a goat, since she wants to be a veterinarian. Okay. Cinderella gets muddy and angry, and instead of going to the ball, she becomes a punk rocker. Okay. Red Riding Hood is a pizza delivery girl, and the lumberjack tries to prove his alpha male masculinity to her. Okay. It's not that exciting or interesting. It doesn't even end properly. You find that Rumpelstiltskin is the one ruining all these happily ever afters for the folk in the village, and when you confront him, he threatens you in a little cutscene, and then leaves. And then you win. Apparently there is an end to this story, but I had to look it up on YouTube because it's a side quest that was in the game. It doesn't even work anymore since Poptropica migrated the remains of its corpse to coolmathgames.com, and no, it wouldn't have even been worth it if I did get it working.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
It sucks because it feels like a project that had love and a vested interest in it from the developers, yet had a deadline and no chance of revision or expansion. I'd like to give it a higher place than where it currently sits, but it's not an island that necessarily deserves one. What a shame.
Me and my monkey.
So you guys remember my last place slot, right? I mean, I just talked about it not that many slots ago, so I'd hope your attention span wasn't that fried, but let's reminisce, shall we? I'd say it's fine for its purpose as a tutorial island, but that's not even true. For some reason, it was the replacement to a predecessor that did the same job much better with a far more interesting premise. We'll see it later in the list, obviously. Well, that later in the list is now. I think that Monkey Wrench Island is a far superior tutorial island to Snagglemast, and that it gets so much more of the job done than that island could ever dream of. It shows new players, A, how to run, jump, interact, and in general, operate your character. 2, that Poptropica islands have unique stories, environments, and settings. And C, some other third thing. I lump pretty much all the stuff the tutorial teaches you in the first 2 options. You're in a plane race with the pilot Amelia, you get screwed by the evil pilot villain, and you crash onto the aforementioned Monkey Wrench Island. It's pretty solid at setting the premise of how to play, and I could imagine kids who never played the game when it originally came out enjoying it quite a lot. Hell, it even has the origin story to how you get your ever-iconic Poptropica blimp, the one you ride around to travel from island to island. I think that Monkey Wrench does its job perfectly as a tutorial. That being said, it is a tutorial. It has no particularly gripping story, and it's very short for obvious reasons. I wouldn't ever care to replay it, and really all that it's useful for is teaching newbies the ropes. Still, for being as confident of a tutorial island as it is, especially when you compare it to Snagglemast, I gotta put it a little higher than the bottom 7. So, here you go, Monkey Wrench. 46th place.
As a result, videos titled Big Nate being sus that depict the titular character indulging in all sorts of depraved activities feel like an intentional deconstruction of the family-friendly genre it lives in.
Big Nate Island is an island that exists. As per usual with these brand islands, I'm not very familiar with the source material. I only know about one comic strip from Big Nate, and it's this one. It's actually kind of funny, so I'll compliment the comics based off of this one joke, but otherwise I know next to nothing. You're trying to save the local school by finding a time capsule that could have enough valuables to cover its costs, and Large Nathan is also there on every screen, making sure to have some witty comment on whatever scenario is currently happening. I'm not keen on a lot of the island, especially Huge Nathaniel, given that he just won't leave you the hell alone and has to chime in on how much of a hip, cool kid he is, but I will have to give it some credit in being somewhat fun. I like the jet ski part. I liked putting comic pieces together that I found. I like the paper football part. That's really it. I will admit, it does have a nostalgic vibe about it. It was one of the first advertisement islands, and it's kind of neat to see where the Poptropica team was really starting to dip their toes into IP expansion. I don't think most of these expansions are good, mind you, but it is kind of cool to see where it really kicked off. That said, I've had enough of Gigantic Nephilim and his lame pranks. Next!
Good morning, Starshine. The Earth says hello.
Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-doo. I've got a certain ranking for you. This island I don't like, you'll see. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory Island. Much like how I was familiar with and am a fan of the story of The Great Pumpkin, I'm also quite a fan of the story of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's such a good read, and I'm a big fan of the movies as well. If you're wondering which is my favorite, it's the Tim Burton one. I don't care if a lot of you think that's a blasphemous take. That movie kicks ass. Despite my enjoyment of that story, I don't enjoy this island. Objectively, it's better than its prior islands on this ranking. I mean, that's why it's here. I can tell the art team had a lot of fun designing the levels. It does indeed feel whimsical and wonky, like a world of pure imagination, and I especially enjoy that some of the story and designs adapt more from the book than the movies. You know what else? They actually made it fit into the Poptropica style. They could have implemented the original drawings from Quentin Blake and had them awkwardly interact with your bobble-headed Poptropican, but they didn't, and it's far less uncanny than these tie-ins normally are. That being said, it does still contain the issue I have with Great Pumpkin Island, being that it recaps the entire story and doesn't add much. You're playing out the same script that you've seen dozens of times before, except now, you're there. I'll throw some points to Chocolate Factory Island though. You do get to go to all the punishment rooms for the bad kids and try and save them. You'll be stopping Veruca and her father from being incinerated in one scenario, or stretching Mike TV out in the taffy puller in another. Also, and I'll bring these up whenever they apply, there is a bonus quest at the end where you get to do some extra stuff. They may or may not boost an island up or down depending on what more they add after the main story ends. Back in my day, these bonus quests were a member-only perk that incentivized you to beg for your parents' credit card and have them buy a subscription to the game, which was otherwise free to play online as you already know. However, with the Flashpoint emulator, I found that every single bonus quest is now unlocked and available to play for everyone for free! So, would it have been worth the $20 a year for membership? No, not at all. You fly the glass elevator that Mr. Willy Wonka has, and you take out his competitors like Slugworth in a dogfight, where stealing his secret candy ingredients. It's a teensy bit fun flying around, but then you beat them, get some cosmetic shit, and then you're done. So no, this island doesn't get any booster points from its bonus quest. If anything, it goes down a spot lower than I would have put it. Sorry, island, but I feel scammed playing that bonus quest, and I didn't pay a cent for it. I can't imagine how lame that would have been if I did. Oompa loompa doompa dee dee. It was a mid-experience for me. If you don't like the take I gave, that's your opinion, it's okay.
I haven't been able to look at that bathroom door for 2 weeks!
I knew that door had a lock on it!
Oh god, I'm getting so sick of reviewing this genre of island. Please make it stop. Wimpy Wonderland Island is the first of 2 islands that take place in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid tie-ins. To be fair, out of all the cash grab islands, this makes the most sense given that Jeff Kinney ran both Poptropica and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I get it. You don't have to work out the copyrights or figure out what stories would best fit or anything. It's already there for you. That said, as someone who read these books as a kid, I'm still not keen on it. There's a little bit of a soft spot I have for the misadventures of Greg Heffley, but it's just not fun to play as a random dude who's been dropped right into a story that isn't his. It's not even that fun of a concept for the events that take place on this island. Manny, Greg's little brother, is running amok in town, and you gotta help us. That's it, really. I found it to be very boring to attempt catching Manny, and the only major fun I had was in a game within the game where you have a little wizard build a castle to defend himself from oncoming orcs. I appreciate the art style, especially that they did it in the classic black and white from the books, but Mr. Green being here couldn't look less fitting in the world if he tried. It's an alright island, and it's higher in my list because I enjoyed the Diary of a Wimpy Kid elements a bit, but it's an island I'd not write that much home about. I kind of vibed a bit with Mystery of the Map Island. It's short, and maybe technically a tie-in island, but I had some fun with it. Mystery of the Map is based off of a graphic novel of the same name, one that actually takes place within Poptropica itself. Poptropica was trying to branch into other forms of media later in its popularity, which included books based off of specific islands, as well as this original series that featured a trio of kids discovering unique and strange islands whilst following the good old classic map we know and love. It's a fun idea, and I remember really enjoying these comics during their original run. As an island, though, like I said, there's parts that I vibed with, but I wouldn't call them great. It's an enjoyable setting, being a tropical Viking island trapped in time that also has dodos for some reason. Carnivorous dodos, nonetheless. It feels like an island they would have made alongside the classics for how unique of an idea it is. What Mystery of the Map Island has in atmosphere, however, it lacks in story. It's so weird that for a story specifically designed to fit Poptropica's weird rules, that it doesn't feel any different to me than the brand tie-ins I previously criticized. I just don't like these types of stories in the game where I feel like I'm an add-on side character. I'm not saying that stories can't work with you as a side character. There are fantastic stories that function just fine without you being the center of the universe. It even extends to a ton of the good islands in this ranking. What I specifically don't like about these advert islands is it almost never feels like I'm supposed to be in them. Sure, I can help get the main cast out of a pickle, but really I'm interrupting their adventure that I was never supposed to be a part of. Also, this story isn't even finished when you beat the island. There are more graphic novels after Mystery of the Map. I suppose they could have kept making sequel islands, but since that's never going to happen, it doesn't have as much conclusivity as I'd like it to have. Anyways, I do appreciate how Poptropica this island does feel as opposed to the similar predecessors, so there's that for it. We're almost out of the woods with these kinds of islands I dislike, guys, I promise. Hold on just for a little bit more. I know I have to.
This will fetch a very fine price.
It's been a good while since we had an original IP Poptropica Island. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Jade Scarab Island. First off, this is the final island that Poptropica ever made, and while it's not the best ever, I think it's an okay place to end Poptropica at. I don't like that it's where Poptropica ended, and I don't think it's a good finale to the whole game series, but, it could have been worse. Could have been Galactic Hot Dogs. There is an island I think serves as a far superior point to end on for the game, but we got a ways to go before we get to it. An aspect of the island I will admit to enjoying is that the story and setting work well for what they gave us. You're trying to help a museum in Egypt discover some artifacts tied to Bastet in an archaeological dig site. There's puzzles, history lessons, and even an encounter with tomb raiders. They get killed in a very Indiana Jones-esque manner of abusing power they were never meant to have and getting struck down by the very high beings they tried to take advantage of. That was cool. Other than that, though, I just didn't care much for it. I don't dislike it. Let's get that out of the way. I'm neutral on it. I don't believe Jade Scarab does anything inherently terrible, but it just got unlucky to be how I and many others see the legacy of Poptropica. It's not all that memorable, it's very short, though longer than the two islands released before it, and mostly leaves me with the impact of, that was interesting. Shame that that's it. I guess we're done doing the islands now. I like the idea, I like the setting, I like the story. I'd appreciate all that much more if it was given the space and time to flesh out, as well as if it wasn't the last breath this game took 3 years ago before getting lobotomized and thrown into the lost media landfill. Wimpy Boardwalk Island has most of the problems I had with Wimpy Wonderland. I do not care to list them again, and I'm sure you guys would like me to move on from these types of islands since I've mostly talked about them for the past half hour or something. I'll mention differences quickly. You're at the beach, or rather the boardwalk. The world is in full color now, and instead of retrieving Greg's sibling for him, you're retrieving his 20. Got it? Got it. So why, if I have the same issues with the prior island, do I have it 4 slots ahead? Oh, I'll tell ya. It's because of its bonus quest. I'd say this is by far, and I mean this, my favorite bonus quest in the entirety of Poptropica. That's right. Out of the 14 bonus quests I was able to try for the first time during my last playthrough, this one gave me the best bang for my hypothetical buck. Similar to how playing Twisted Wizard was my favorite part of Wimpy Wonderland, playing Thundervolt was my favorite part of Wimpy Boardwalk. It's a well-designed, fast-paced, bullet-hell roguelike on one of the arcade machines at the boardwalk, and I was not expecting anything as fun as that in the slightest. Don't get me wrong, I was frustrated when I died to difficult bosses or lost my power-ups due to a stray enemy strafing into me from a weird angle. But then again, that's how I feel sometimes when playing roguelikes like Downwell, Crab Champions, or Slay the Spire. I love those games. For every rage moment I had, I was also given an incredibly engaging alien blasting experience. Technically, you can't beat the game since the final boss is literally coded to be impossible. I mean, all you're trying to do is separate Greg's high score from the player below him because of a username troll, so I understand why. Alright, enough glazing. I didn't care much for the rest of the island. It only gets this high in my ranking because of the bonus quest. And considering that it is a membership-only experience that I got to play only because of Flashpoint and wouldn't have done so otherwise, I think it's fair to have it stay closer to the bottom than the top.
So now we move on to the long jump. Here we see Houston's little warm-up routine here, clearly pretending he has any idea of what's going on here.
Every 100 years or so, the ancient city of Poptropolis rises from the murky depths to invite Poptropicans across the archipelago to compete in the Poptropolis Games, the Olympics, but in Poptropica. I think you guys are seeing a pattern here for some of these islands. It's okay. I've always thought that this island was just an average experience. I don't think it's necessarily poorly made or anything. Quite the contrary, actually. It has a lot of cool set pieces, an interesting backstory, and a ton of unique minigames, but I just never really cared that much for it. They did a cool thing way back when where the island sank again and was unavailable to players for a long period of time, only then to rise back from the sea, this time with a few new games to conquer. It's actually a really cool way of tying its lore to the real-life Olympics, where the games only occur once every 4 years and add new events, to varying levels of success, I might add. I almost wonder if the developers wanted to do this to Poptropolis games annually, but didn't because of a lack of interest. I mean, I don't really see that many people online talking about the island as one of their favorites, and I think, at least from my perspective, that the reason is that it isn't all that interesting gameplay-wise. Sure, the games are unique, sometimes fun, and require a little bit of skill to complete, but it just becomes a cycle that you do for all 11 categories. 1. Pick event. 2. Play event and try to get high score. 3. See if you got in top rankings. 4. Repeat. It's pretty hard to lose, and I don't think I ever did in any playthrough of the games, but unlike a certain other island, if you're not in the top rankings by the end of it, you do have to restart until you're good enough to earn that gold medallion. What else is there? Oh, it's cool that you get to choose a tribe with an accompanying it's cool you get to choose a tribe with an accompanying fucking hell, this is hard to say. An accompanying jersey. I guess these are the equivalents of the countries competing in the Olympics. What else? Oh yeah, man, this island has a doozy of a bonus quest. It really sucks. After you beat Poptropolis Games Island, an ancient statue man from the ocean wants to challenge you to a final showdown. And let me tell you, when I got blocked by that membership paywall as a kid, I was so bummed that I couldn't get to participate in an epic battle of the century, a battle to crown the grand champion. But now that I played it, I think younger me should be grateful that he never spent his allowance on a Poptropica membership. Ocean Man wants to fight you in a wrestling match, and you do. You have to match the correct parry move to whatever he's going to do, and then you do that a few times, and then you win. It took me a bit to figure out how to work it, but then I did, and Ocean Man took me by the hand to the sporty land to tell me that, oh yeah, I guess you are the best. Pretty epic, my dude. That's it. Aside from that stinker bonus quest, I'll give it to this island for having a unique execution. I appreciate a lot of what it does, but I was, and still am, not a big fan of it.
Escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
Superpower Island is definitely my least favorite of the original 5 from Poptropica. Objectively, it's not bad. Probably even really good for some people, but it never clicked for me that much. Maybe it's the fact that I've never been a huge comic nerd, maybe it's some tedium, maybe it's the ending. I don't know. I think the premise of an asteroid striking a prison and gifting its inmates with superpowers is a really fun setup, especially that you don't get to see their escape but arrive to the chaos of the scene. You got dossiers from the Popo on the conflicts to study up on, and then meet them later as they terrorize different parts of the city. It's fun figuring out how to use each villain's powers against them, largely because you are powerless for the vast majority of the island. There is a point where a retired super gives you the ability to fly after beating 5 of this island's sinister 6, and it's a little bit of a struggle trying to keep up with the final villain. I'll admit, I had fun playing this island. I enjoyed it a little more on my live stream than when I first played it, but like I said, it wasn't my thing really. The superhero-themed stuff in this setting just didn't intrigue me enough. There are bits of this island where I feel annoyed going back and forth from prison to the next bad guy over and over. I'm still butthurt over the ending where some intellectual dweeb punches the last villain I was chasing after, after I weakened her, and for some reason, despite taking out 5 members prior to this gang of 6, the media and police give this nerd all the credit, and I have to come groveling over to his little comic shop so I can bargain with him over the medallion that he doesn't even want. Is this what stolen valor feels like? Yeah, guys, he did save my ass, and I'm grateful for that, but why don't I get a thank you for everything I did beforehand? What the fuck is this? Betty Jetty flies and shoots green orbs. Okay, that's pretty intimidating, I guess. I can see him getting a ton of credit for taking out a high priority target. You know who else is a high priority target though? Every villain I stopped beforehand. Let me name a few. A man who uses telekinesis to earthbend. A woman who can clone herself repeatedly. A man who controls all the fucking rats in the city. Have you seen the power that someone who controls all rats is capable of? Have you? Sorry, what was I saying? Oh yeah, good island, just not really for me.
We're not in love with the island!
You're an island boy!
I'm an island boy!
Skullduggery Island was Sea of Thieves before Sea of Thieves was even conceived. It's pretty sweet for the most part. I love pirate-themed stuff like this in games. It doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, it usually slaps. In this one, you have to become the fiercest pirate in the 7 seas. You do that by collecting treasure lost to the tides, fighting giant sea monsters and rival swashbucklers alike, and amassing a worthy crew and upgrading your vessel into a ship feared by pirates ocean-wide. Hell, it even teaches you about the banking system and how interest rates on loans work. That sounds like a joke, but it's not. I'm not kidding. This island has a sick theme, sick adventures, a sick quest for booty, and a sick villain to face against. Why the hell do I have this at 37th place? Well, the answer for that is tedium. This is by far the longest island to play out of every single one in the game, and it's not because it's full to the gills with content, but rather repetition. Like I said, part of the mechanics of this island is to collect treasure, and that treasure is the currency of which you utilize to pay for new recruits and ship upgrades. You need to have a maxed out crew and the biggest, baddest pirate ship of them all to take on the dread pirate Captain Crawfish. I don't know if it is possible to do that beforehand, which maybe it is, I don't know, but the easiest way of completing the island is to max everything out. Even if you take out loans like I did, it just becomes an incredibly long and tedious quest to collect coins in the water. The game won't progress if you don't take down Captain Crawfish, so for about 3 hours I scavenged the ocean to save up for the stuff the game wanted me to use. Granted, when I got the stuff, it felt awesome and badass that I became the ruler of Skullduggery Island's waters, but the time it took to get there was grating. It especially doesn't help that once you do get to that ultimate point, the game is basically over. You find the treasure to help with the poor town that I forgot to mention kickstarts this island, and you send the evil pirates off with their tails between their legs, and bada bing, bada boom, you're all done and can move on. I really want to give Skullduggery Island a much higher place since it's a super awesome idea, but I just can't with how damn long it takes to beat.
Scream and your entire staff dies.
Poptropica Island is kinda neat. It's the only one that features the character customization as a core gameplay feature, so that's special. Obviously, it's a parody of Comic-Con, and at the time it was playing off of the hype of Avengers Age of Ultron, which is just crazy to think how 10 years ago big comic collaboration movies were a fresh and exciting idea. It's also the first game in this ranking that was released during a period of time where Poptropica made islands that were getting released in multiple parts. This one in particular had 3 chapters. The first chapter was about getting into the convention center, the second was trying to find leaks on Omegon, aka Ultron, and his new design in the convention, and the third was saving the world from the real-life version of that guy as he leads a tyrannical takedown of the city. Pretty standard Poptropica stuff, really. I don't have much to complain about with this island, I just think it's okay. I like the cosplay elements where, like I mentioned, it actually has you utilize the character customization to progress, as well as a fun card game similar to Magic the Gathering. But otherwise, I just don't vibe that much with the theme. It's kind of like Superpower Island. I don't hate comic book characters or movies. Some of my favorite pieces of media are from those genres, but typically it's not my go-to for pop culture. My pop-tropic culture, if you would.
Let's go to the mall today.
This island rocked for me way back when because I really enjoyed feeling like the character of one of my favorite movies at the time. Paul Blart Mall Cop. Please don't make fun of me, guys. I was a kid, alright? I thought it was cool because they said bad words in it. Night Watch Island's premise is that you become the night guard of Twin Palms Mall. That's most of it. Right out of the gate, I'll address my criticism. Tedium. Though not even a fraction as long as Skullduggery Island, there is an irritating amount of back and forth travel throughout the mall. Granted, most of Poptropica functions where you go back and forth throughout the game map since you discover new items and backtrack to use them, but here the setting is so enclosed yet gigantic that it was always aggravating following the missions. You have an iPhone that updates and alerts you to potential break-ins or mishaps in the various stores in the mall, and to progress the story, you have to travel from one end of the building to the other due to these alerts. It was always annoying as hell because I'd get a text saying, "The tanning salon is having problems," and I'd go all the way over there, and then an immediate next message would be like, "Something's wrong at the toy store," and I'd have to segue across 2 loading screens back to where I originally was. I don't remember if it happened, but it never felt like the next update would be for a store in the vicinity of the last one I tended to. Also, since it is a negative and I'd like to talk about the positives last, this bonus mission really sucks. It's just looking for baseball cards for one of the store owners in the game, and I think, if I remember right, I got rewarded with cosmetic crap I was never going to use. It felt even more tedious than what I already mentioned. With those complaints out of the way, I kinda enjoyed this island. Yes, there's a bunch of stores to visit, and that can be irksome of course, but each one is so well designed and fully detailed that the whole building is just incredibly fun to explore. It feels like a genuine shopping mall and feels lived in, or rather worked in. Each store has its own personality and fun displays, and I feel like this island shows a ridiculous amount of talent from the art department to put it together. I like a lot of the jokes, the mysterious heist from a burglar that takes up most of the second and third act, and the sensation of rolling around in an empty mall at night just has such a uniquely satisfying feel that's hard to describe. I very much enjoyed Nightwatch Island, but man does that constant back and forth stuff in the building get tiresome.
For the first time ever, on DVD and video, all the Disney villains are together.
Supervillain Island is kind of the Avengers Infinity War of Poptropica. You go to a secret ADX prison in the middle of the ocean where you find a ton of villains from various past Poptropica islands being held. The top 4 evildoers are in cryostasis or something like that, and your job is to extract dream totems from them to try and cure their villainy. It's honestly a really cool premise, and I enjoyed the different dreams, literally seeing what goes on in the heads of these Poptropican psychos. With how far this island is distanced from the 4 classic villains, it's nice seeing them and their wackiness again. If you know anything about Roman mythology versus Greek mythology, the third act twist is not surprising at all, but as a kid I remember it blew my freaking mind. It's a shortish island full of fun revisitations on past bad guys of the game, but even though I can't find much wrong with it, it's just not in my top favorites. I don't know how to explain it other than it just doesn't feel like an island I'm crazy about. I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with Supervillain Island, so maybe I'll put it higher. Oh, what's that? It had a bonus quest? Oh shoot, I forgot it did. I can see why I forgot though. It's just an upside down color inverted part of Mythology Island with a password code you have to find. Alright, we're not putting it higher. It's a little more mediocre because of that. I don't have that strong of a connection to it, but otherwise it's a great island. Lunar Colony Island suffers from a mild case of wasted potential in my opinion. I didn't like the island that much when I was younger and found it boring to play through, but on this replay, something about the context of the story intrigued me all the way to the end. The long and short of it is that the Poptropican version of NASA, PACE, is closing the doors on its moon exploration program and needs to retrieve its astronauts that are stationed in a lunar colony. That's the name of the game! So far, everyone from the crew has returned except for one, Commander Salerno. She's gone missing and all communication with her has been lost. Your job, playing this island, is to launch into space, find her, and bring her home. Driving a rover from abandoned moonbase to abandoned moonbase and exploring the uninhabited barracks has a slight tension to it, a tension enhanced by the fact that you're looking for one person who refuses to be found. That wasted potential I was referring to in my mind is that this setting would have been amazing for a cosmic horror twist in the lead up of this part. There is a cosmic twist at the end, but not a horrifying one. And yes, I know that this is a game for primarily children and teens. Obviously we don't have to go the Dead Space route, but with the slow burn of finding out Salerno was studying otherworldly obelisks on the moon that lead to an ancient portal, and one that just gave me huge alien vibes no less, it would have been sweet if the third act of the game involved having to avoid Lovecraftian beings and sealing off an eldritch realm of beasts that Salerno had lost her sanity to. In a PG setting, of course. How the game actually ends is that Salerno jumps through the portal, and you don't get to see what's inside, other than a grainy picture she sends back to Pace saying that her mission was accomplished. It's fairly anticlimactic. There's a bonus quest where you had to decipher codes Salerno sent. It's not exciting extra content in the slightest. Also, I don't know if it was really convoluted or I was just being an idiot, but I will admit I couldn't figure out how to decipher the code puzzle and had to look up a guide. The rewards for the code cracking are more grainy images that do capture really unique alien architecture that would have been super sick to see in person in-game for my hypothetical third act, but that's all it was. Just some photos of an extra-dimensional city. That's the end of the island. If this somehow pulled off a cosmic horror subversion in an online kids game, this island would have probably been in the top 10 for me for sure, but it's a bit of a letdown. It introduces cool ideas and a great starting concept, but doesn't expand on much of it. I feel like this placement might be one of the most controversial on this list. I mean, come on, Jolly Wampa. It's not even in the top half? What is this bullshit? Let me explain. Poptropica fans, before you crucify me, I like this island. I like it a lot. I enjoyed my replay of it, especially since I got my friend Eth Bona to accompany me for it.
You're gonna go cross it.
Who are you?
I'm Georgie.
Georgie?
I think it's neat. I think it's cool. I think it's full of heart and soul. It is the origin of this wonderful kids game, the tick-to-lick of it perchance. It is early Poptropica Island, and unfortunately, it doesn't really feel like a top spot contender for me. Early Poptropica kind of functions as a pseudo-tutorial island for the game, you know, given that it is the first island that ever released on it at all, and features simple gameplay elements to warm up new players into mastering the style of play you need for Poptropica. It has a very simple quest. Get 3 important items back to the early Poptropicans, and you'll beat this island. There are easy puzzles involved, platforming, interacting with NPCs, hazards such as the giant enemy spider, and most important of all to the adventure genre playstyle of this game, collecting random items you find and using them in appropriate situations you run into. I really do have a soft spot in my heart for early Poptropica, especially with how charming it is. The art style is incredibly simplistic, far more so than even a few islands that released after it, but those flat images just feel like such an honest attempt to make something special for kids to play. It's so weird too, in an endearing way, I should clarify. There's a tiny city with spooky sewers underneath it, an art museum with real images of real paintings inside of it, the giant and his castle from Jack and the Beanstalk, and for some reason the early Poptropicans are pixelated pilgrims. This pixelation never reoccurs anywhere else on any other island in the game, by the way. I suppose it's supposed to represent that they're early Poptropicans, as if Poptropica had a retro game before it, but it never did. Regardless, I still really enjoy the decision because of how out there it goes. I want to give it a first half spot on this list. I really do. If it were Kid Me making this ranking, he probably would have put it there. But taking the nostalgia goggles off, I can't really say I got much from this island. It's really short, is incredibly simple to solve, and doesn't have that gripping of a narrative. Despite this, I still gotta show a ton of respect for it. I mean, come on, it's early Poptropica for crying out loud.
Welcome to Winter River, Museum of Natural Green, a monument to the boy businessman. Come on a little closer.
I absolutely love this setting and ideas for Monster Carnival Island. The reason it's this low is that it's not nearly as good as I remember it being, but let's just dive into the details. First off, the score is great. I love the spooky Halloweeny music that plays throughout the island, and it just sets the tone perfectly. Oh, I forgot to mention, but up until Virus Hunter Island, the game was near dead silent. Prior to this, noise or audio tracks were a complete oddity, and thus there aren't a ton of islands to complement the music of. Back to where I was at. This bouncy yet eerie music sets the tone amazingly, and the transformation of the songs from day to night alongside the visual transformation of the seemingly average traveling fair into a sinister haven for dark magic works wonders. The story revolves around this carnival coming to town and finding out its secrets, the main one being that the ringmaster of said carnival has the ability to turn his carnies into fearsome monsters. It's probably one of the scariest islands in the game. Not that I was scared this time, I just remember being creeped out a ton when I first played it, and especially this goddamn haunted house with that fucking puppet. I really didn't like going in there 11 years ago. Jeez, I'm old. Anyways, what this island has in pure spooky atmosphere and mostly cool monster designs, it lacks in a satisfying story. Part of the mystery that's uncovered is that Ringmaster Raven, the troop leader and antagonist of the island, was part of the circus as a child. He was nicknamed Bird Boy, for he was born with a few feathers and a long pointy nose. His big evil plan is to turn everyone in town into monsters, and the reason he plans on turning everyone into monsters is because he was called one all his life. You'd think this story would have you defeat him in a respectful way where you call him out for his evil doings while empathizing with his neglected childhood, but no, you use his own hypnosis techniques against him, really just a mirror, and trick him into acting like a chicken from now on, which feels really insensitive given that he was falsely accused of arson and chased out of town decades prior due to his bird-like defect. Also, there's a ton of lines about enslaving people that he uses, and when you hypnotize him, you say something along the lines of, "Now you're my slave." I mean, do I have to explain how off-putting this is in this scenario? Apparently there is a rewritten ending that they gave to the story afterwards because of the injustice people other than myself felt for this guy, where you hypnotize him to be your friend instead of your slave, and the townsfolk are more regretful about their actions as opposed to not caring that they outcasted a child for having a big nose and plumage. I guess I played the old version. Still, it feels like the story just rubs salt in the wound for this guy's fate with its bonus quest, one where the town pharmacist is revealed to have an animalistic tail and is terrified that people will shun and chase him out of town just like Ringmaster Raven. I mean, I don't blame him. At the end of it though, everyone accepts him and tells him that he's still the same guy they know and love, even though there's no such courtesy that was ever given to Raven. Look, I get that they changed the ending, and yes, planning on enslaving people and turning them into horrendous beasts for revenge is not a good thing, but, I can understand how Ringmaster Raven felt justified after being abused by these people, and as a child nonetheless. The comeuppance just feels a little harsh in that original ending. Other than that, I don't have much else to say on Monster Carnival.
You stole it! He stole it! No, I didn't!
I feel like I think about this island more than anyone else who's played Poptropica. It's not an island that's exactly outstanding or that special. I mean, it's in the bottom half of this list for Pete's sake, but I just can't shake Counterfeit Island out of my mind. As the 10th island that was ever released in this game, it's in a weird place of nostalgia where it feels like one of the classic islands, but at the same time, one of the moderns. Technically, looking at how many have released, it is a classic, but I think it has that modern style because of how it feels like an island concept that would be pulled out later in the lifespan of Poptropica, where they were trying to come up with specifically niche island ideas. I imagine the reason I think about it so much lies in its name, Counterfeit Island. I just remember learning what that word meant when I played it for the first time, as well as finding out about the world of art thievery, forensics, and the underground history of France's catacombs. Something I found cool on my second go through here of the game is that I was able to identify a ton of artistic pieces I had no understanding of in my youth, mostly because since then I've been through graphic design and art classes in college. Also, there's a cool part that, to my knowledge, is the only time in the entirety of this game where you travel to a different island to complete the one you're playing. In this case, you go to the art museum on early Poptropica Island to meet the Counterfeit Island curator or something like that. Really neat lessons this island has to teach on the art world, and like I said, this one sticks in my brain a lot out of the vast selection of islands Poptropica has to offer. Other than automatically liking it because I'm an art guy, I do think it's not as good as what's to come. Next.
24.
9.
Carrot?
This is going to be another scenario similar to early Poptropica. I don't dislike 24 Carat Island at all. I think it's great. It's just such an out there, zany concept that feels super unique and just contains the essence of what Poptropica is. However, while I'm sure many would put it higher on their tier lists, I have a few complaints that keep it lower, aside from it personally not being amongst my favorite islands. One of the cool things about it that definitely boosts it from where it could have been lower is that it was revamped audio and upscale wise. Remember what I said a little bit ago in Monster Carnival, how full audio was added to the most recent islands? Well, for a few of the older islands, such as Shrink Ray, Time Tangled, this one, etc., they were given a full remaster, a soundtrack, sound in general, and a large resolution game window as well. The island is completely improved upon with these upgrades and feels much more aggressively sad and dark of a scenario than it originally did because of said upgrades. The story is that you land on an island of which the economy's exports are entirely carrot related. Why they don't have anything else? I don't know. That's just bad economics. But what I do know is that the carrots are disappearing, people are losing jobs, they're hungry, and are in need of a miracle, and the music that was added makes the desperation depressingly palpable. There's an iconic Poptropica minigame thing here where you can mix drinks together from a soda machine to change your hair color. That has nothing to do with what I was talking about, but it'd be a shame if I didn't mention it. Anyways, there's an abandoned carrot factory which secretly houses the headquarters of the evil Dr. Hare and his minions. Dr. Hare is probably the most recognizable and goofy Poptropica character ever to exist. Even if you're not knowledgeable on Poptropica, there's a more than 75% chance you've seen this guy on some old merch or on an app icon or something. I think he's a fantastically silly villain and a funny character. Outside of this island. He's barely in this quest line. You find out he's using the carrots to fuel his Rabot rocket ship to go to space. For what reason? I don't know or remember. He talks to you only really when you're sabotaging his mission, but you don't get a cool final boss fight unless you count just sabotaging his rocket. Other than that, the base you're in is his, and he has the ability of mind controlling people with his mind control rabbit ears. I feel that most of his character that people know and love him for is present outside of this island. I mean, I got more from him as a character in Supervillain Island, and all his subconscious reveals that he has a nightmare about being kidnapped by ants. That's more information about this guy being a crazy lunatic than in his original debut. Off the Dr. Hair tangent, 24 Karat Island has a goofy concept and is a nostalgic classic, but by no means is it in the top half of this ranking for me.
Into the thick of it!
I remember this island fondly. It legitimately was one of my favorites back yonder in my youthful days, and I was super excited to play it once again. Twisted Thicket Island has a really cool story to delve into. You're told that fae folk from the deep, dark, Twisted Thicket are terrorizing the area, and that it would be super helpful if you put a stop to their antics. The island has you progress deep into the woods to find the sources of these beings, the beings of course trying to stop you on your quest. They're all really cool encounters and play a ton into Scandinavian folklore. Wood elves try to stop you from climbing trees, rock trolls play Donkey Kong with you, and don't even get me started on the knockin' section. Alright, I'll talk about the knockin' section. You trudge your way into a treacherous bog guarded by these dog-like beasts called knockin' who turn invisible to stalk and hunt you down. Obviously now, as an adult, it's super easy to follow their red paw prints and sneak by them, but this part paralyzed me with fear as a child and was super tough getting through from what I remember. Once you do get to the end, you find out that, plot twist, the creatures of the wood are actually the good guys, and you are being duped by an evil construction company who wanted to zone the forest. It's a pretty by-the-book environmentalist tale, and it's got a fun finale to stop the company from destroying the thicket. I think if there's anything holding this island back, it's that it's much shorter than I remember, probably because of the knockin' part, and is predictable and cliche. I get it's a kid's game and doesn't need to delve too deep into complex themes, but I was feeling the message was told in a talk-down type of way to me. Also, I'm not too keen on the bonus mission on this island. You just collect shattered pieces of the magical orb that the forest folk needed safe, and you do so by using the power of the dryads, the goblins, and the trolls. It's fine and unique enough, I guess, since you get to use the special abilities, but it's really lackluster of an epilogue. I really do like this island, even though I can recognize its apparent flaws.
Actually, it wasn't even my idea. Hey, watch it! I'm sorry! Is the camera broke? Oh, I'm sorry! Did I ruin the take?
Backlot Island was probably my first deeper introduction into the work that goes behind the scenes to make movie magic. It's not a complicated plot to follow at all, but I really liked playing it. Maybe it's because I'm a big movie nerd and I just love the process of the art. Maybe it's because I've actually been to the Warner backlot that inspired this island. I don't know. Most of the experience is going around the backlot sets in this Poptropican version of Hollywood, helping the renowned director Carson Willis to film his magnum opus. As Poptropica has always had some educational moments in its islands, here you learn about filming techniques such as cinematography and Foley artistry. Something cool that actually happened back in college was that we had an animation project that needed audio, and my professor explained what Foley was, which, if you don't know, is the art of adding sound effects post-production in media. In the back of my mind, however, I already knew what it was and how it worked, all thanks to this Poptropica island. If it weren't a topic that I found fascinating, I'd probably have this island drop down into this rankings 30s, since there's not too much exciting gameplay. Also, the movie that you helped create in this makes very little sense. It switches between drastically different genres and scenes with no cohesion, other than someone at the end in the theater saying that it's about the director's life story or something. If this film were real, there'd be an internet war where half of the audience would call it pretentious bullshit that they could make in their garage, and the other half would praise it as absolute cinema and a subversion of everything that movies typically operate by. Also, since it has one, I have to mention the bonus quest. I mean, it blows. What do you want me to say? You just outrun security because they think you stole a camera, and then you win. That's it. Besides that lame quest, I just really like this island because it puts me in the same kind of mood as when I'm making a video, like this one, and putting all the nice little touches together. As a bonus, you get to experience the Hollywood work life without losing your soul. It may not be realistic, but hey, not being realistic is what makes video games fun.
Arm the laser!
We finally passed the halfway point of Poptropica's islands for this ranking. You heard me right. Halfway. We've still got 26 islands to talk about, so if you need, go take a bathroom break, get some snacks, maybe some drinks, and come back on over, because we're not
done yet.
Now that you're back, let's talk about Spy Island. Or Spyland, if you will. Spy Island is one of the OGs, the 6th island ever released, to be precise. I like it. It does indeed have that good old-fashioned retro Poptropica charm, as well as a very fun villainous scheme to foil. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to stop the agents of BAD from removing the full head of hair of every Poptropican on the planet with freaking laser beams from space. It's full of sneaky spy moments where you sneak around as a spy. You got all kinds of cool gadgets and gizmos aplenty, and it's really fun moving around the island, especially with the late-night bustling city aesthetic. I love the twist at the end too. It's so comically petty and dumb of the villain for his reason to try to de-hair the Earth that I just love it.
He's bald! He's bald and he's torturing people who have hair!
It's a really good island. I remember not liking it as much when I was younger, probably because I had a hard time deciphering the cool spy puzzles, but man was this a super fun revisit on stream. Not my favorite island, but I can't deny how enjoyable of a time it is.
I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit.
Sharktooth Island is great. As the second island to ever release for this game, it's got that almost beta version feel you get from early Poptropica, where the art style is much simpler than it became, and the questline and story are just so testing the waters kind of unique that it sticks in your brain forever. On Sharktooth Island, the goal is quite simple. Just take in the scenery, explore the shark-themed ruins, and for the main mission, you have to save 2 people stranded on a much smaller offshore island. It's blocked by a giant shark, and, along with a fun coconut shooting cannon, you just have to feed him a laced coconut to safely swim the waters. There's cool monuments, a fun museum on sharks. It really fits Poptropica's, well, tropic vibe that you get from its browser art and loading screens, and overall, I think it's just a super simple and memorable gaming experience that I feel almost everybody who's ever played the game loves dearly. Would I say it's one of the best islands? No. It's pretty short. Apparently the wiki says you can beat it in 4 minutes, probably quicker for some speedrunners. Because of this, there isn't a lot to do either. Most of it is just the experience of visiting the island, and while I do like it and the atmosphere a lot, I think I'd be lying to myself if I said it should be far higher. Nothing fundamentally wrong with this one, it's just that obviously I like the ones ahead of it more.
My blade will destroy you in a single strike.
It's been a good while since the intro to the video, so why don't I refresh you on some caveats I brought up for this list. Crisis Caverns and Greek Sea Odyssey are 2 islands I have never played and will never be able to play since they were part of the short-lived Poptropica worlds. These 2 islands are listed on the wiki, but technically, since they're not even islands that would have been a part of the OG game, I'm not bothering to count them. In their place, however, I am taking 2 of the mini-quests in the original game that I feel function as their own standalone islands, despite being side adventures that technically don't count. Thank you for the explanation, Past Jolly. We'll start with the first of these 2 mini-quests I've counted. Legendary Swords. I cannot explain enough how much I loved this little side adventure when I first played the game. If my memory is correct, it was members only for a bit of time, but eventually was released as a fully playable extra to everyone, and once it was, I played the absolute shit out of it. Sorry to keep giving exposition, but I have to explain mini-quests if you aren't familiar. Mini-quests were purchasable items from the in-game store that let you play mini-games and spin-offs of existing islands typically. For example, you had Dr. Hare's Secret Lab spinning off of 24 Karat Island, or DC Diner spinning off of Mystery Train Island. Got it? Alright. Legendary Swords was one of these, but unlike most of them, it was a mini-quest that existed in its own isolated location with no connection back to any other Poptropica thing that had already existed. You fly a rocket into the solar system, land on an alien planet, and find the native creatures running from a destructive robotic force. You pull an ancient blade from its stone sheath, and the game turns into a beat-em-up where you rock the ever-loving shit out of these robots. It has boss fights, cool scenery, and even a cliffhanger that didn't get resolved, and will never get resolved because the game is dead now. Sorry to darken the mood there, just being honest. I couldn't really showcase it in my live streams since the Flashpoint version of the game didn't have all my previous store items, but one of the coolest features of this pseudo-island was that if you bought a cosmetic that came with a sword of some kind, such as a medieval knight skin, you could use those swords as weapons here. They even had custom statistics that gave different advantages for each sword. When I originally played, I used the sword that looked the closest to a lightsaber and just pretended to be a heroic Jedi saving the planet from the villainous droids. I will say that during this playthrough, as much as it still brought me joy, it was a lot more annoying. Perhaps it was because the starter sword sucks and deals very little damage. Perhaps it was because I didn't have any of my previous swords to try and use. Or perhaps it was because this boss fight in particular can kiss my ass. But there were definitely parts I found to be grating due to difficulty at the very least. Also, there was that aforementioned cliffhanger. It still makes me super bummed that there was never a sequel or a full actual island to play after this mini-quest, but even years before the game was kaput, I had the feeling they were never going to finish the story. A little more agitating than I remember, but I also had more patience as a kid. It's good enough of a mini quest that I think it should be considered its own island. Alright, look, I know in the last section I just flashed back to something I said earlier, but I'm gonna do it again. Remember the time that I talked about the brand tie-in islands? There's a few brand tie-in islands that I actually enjoyed plenty that make it into the top half of this list. Just 2 out of 9. Well, the time for the first of these is now. This is Red Dragon Island. It's a genuinely sick one. The story comes from a combination of a few Magic Treehouse books, mainly Night of the Ninjas and Dragon of the Red Dawn, I believe. The way the Magic Treehouse books go is that 2 kids, Jack and Annie, go on various adventures via a Magic Treehouse. They point to a book in there that has to do with some period of history or such, say that they wish they could go there, and they're teleported there Wizard of Oz style. I don't have anything against the book series, and I really did like it in elementary school, but if you'll remember, my gripes with these tie-in islands usually boil down to being shoved in a story you're not supposed to be in, and not visually fitting into the setting of Poptropica at all. Luckily, in Red Dragon Island's case, it does neither of these. This island bases its story heavily off of the books, yet you don't feel like you're intruding on someone else's adventure. It changes the story so that you're invited by Annie and Jack to the treehouse, and you're teleported to 1300s feudal Japan. The difference between the original book and this, however, is that you kind of take over Jack and Annie's role of adventuring. They get to do all the exploring in the books, but here, they're arrested and imprisoned by the samurai, and you need to save them. The art style fits Poptropica as well this time around. Granted, I think the reason is because there wasn't a cartoonish look to the Magic Treehouse books, and that realistic human children would have really stood out, but it's exactly what I think these tie-ins should have done for every single one. It's not visually jarring in the slightest, and sometimes I even forget that this island is a business collaboration because the art is so on par for Poptropica's look. There's a ton of fun throughout your exploration of the city, and you get to learn a thing or two about Japanese history and mythology as well. There's a part where you trim a bonsai tree, you get to catch a yokai, you fight in a sumo wrestling match, and best of all, of course, you become a ninja. I love the later sections of the island where it becomes a stealth game, where you're utilizing all the special tools you've been equipped with to sneak around. One of the only things I don't like about this island is that during the ninja sections, the wall climbing didn't always work that good. I don't remember it being that difficult originally, so it may just be a flashpoint glitch. What's likely not, though, is the final battle. It's really cool getting to fly a cloud dragon around to put out fires being caused by the evil title of the island Red Dragon, but the fight is incredibly annoying and difficult to deal with since you have to go up and down to refuel on water and douse fires while simultaneously trying to deal damage to the enemy dragon. I think even the devs knew this was irritating because it gave me the option to play on an easier mode for the fight, which really doesn't happen for Poptropica's boss fights. Anyways, congratulations Poptropica! It only took until now to have a good brand island in the game, and it still isn't even top 20. Better than nothing though.
I'll take down those viruses mano a dermo. You know, body adventure.
Virus Hunter Island was revolutionary for Poptropica at the time it came out. Not because of the story or setting, but because it was the first original island to go for a bigger, higher resolution game window, as well as being the first to have a full soundscape both in effects and music. I remember playing this island and being blown away by the fact that something as simple as walking down the street would make footstep sounds against the pavement, or how landing on a metal roof would result in a big clang. The music was cool too, having a mysterious tone most of the time, matching the conspiracy vibes of the island. The boss fight music was incredibly memorable as well. I mean, just listen to this. That's a cheek clencher, alright. Aside from the music and noise that now permeated the island, is there much to say about the story? Yeah, it's alright. If you know anything about that really old movie, Fantastic Voyage, it's really similar. Someone in Poptropica is carrying an incredibly deadly virus in his system, and to avoid felony prison time, don't ask, you're tasked with shrinking down in a ship to traverse his bloodstream and weaken the virus to the point that the white blood cells will take care of the rest. Each part of Joe, the guy's name is Joe by the way, is its own hazardous area to explore, especially when your ship gets stripped of its tools and safety precautions and you have to find them throughout his system. There's acid in his stomach that can melt your ship, his muscles have some gross calcium buildup or some shit that can crush you during his workout, and the dude's got a ton of cholesterol buildup that requires you to cut through layers of fat. Worst of all, of course, is the mutated influenza virus you have to fight in Joe's body. This virus is a legit menace. I'm talking structured like goddamn alien parasites kind of menace. These boss fights were always my favorite parts, somewhat due to the intense music and somewhat due to the creative ways of damaging the virus. For example, the one in Joe's heart needs a good shanking with your laser knife, while the one in his brain needs to be electrocuted with Joe's nerve endings. If you couldn't tell, this island is pretty weird, guys. Other than the salvation of not only Joe, but the entirety of Poptropica, that's about it. Like I said, it's alright. It's very well made, and I think it's super unique, but all I really enjoyed about it was the virus fights. I think the bonus quest is good. It's really more of the same, and that isn't a problem for me. It's about a dog who gets into a petri dish full of heartworms, and so you follow protocol to shrink down to microscopic size and destroy the parasites now clogging up this pup's gutty works. Cool island idea, but it's also pretty uncomfortable going through the crevices of this guy and this dog. Out of the 4 chapter-based islands, Arabian Nights Island is my third favorite. Or second least favorite, if you're a glass half empty kind of person. I've always really liked the stories from the actual 1001 Nights collection, and playing through adaptations of those in Poptropica is really fun. The first chapter focuses on trying to find the lair of the 40 thieves, especially since they've been raiding the local village. The second chapter has you exploring the den of the thieves and trying to see what treasures they've been hoarding, and the final chapter is a fight to stop the leader of the thieves from abusing her power that she's gained from a genie in a lamp. I'm oversimplifying the events of this story for brevity's sake, but I like the progression of the plot and how it takes influence from classic Arabian stories and adds its own spins to the mix. It has an interesting twist at the end with who the leader of the thieves is and her relationship to the Sultan that I think are really endearing. As with many of these higher ranked islands, there's a lot of fun parts as well. I like the bartering system and figuring out what to trade with and whom. I like how many of the thieves are their own identifiable characters and not just copy-pastes of each other. I like the section that references Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, and so on. It's just really well put together, and I like it a lot. Any complaints? Let's see. Each chapter is too short, and personally, the islands above it I just like more. That's about it. We're starting to eat good with these islands.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
I think Game Show Island has always been a great one. It has such a strange concept combination that feels like it wouldn't work in most media, but because it's Poptropica, of course it works. This is a dystopian version of Earth where a rogue AI takes over the planet, makes robots the ruling society, and doesn't exactly enslave humanity, but makes them more like second-class citizens that don't have many rights at all. Also, their economy is run on game shows. Just go with it. Holmes, the am of this universe, was so upset that humans didn't reward him with a private jet for his victory on the Poptropican Jeopardy that he amassed an army of robots and conquered the planet. This is the kind of goofy twist on a serious genre that I live for with Poptropica. This island is about you inspiring citizens to resist their oppressors, and you do so by beating the robots at their own games. Literally. Really simple and short of an island, especially if you know what you're doing during the game show parts, but I enjoyed it plenty. I really like all the parodies of real shows on this island too. Spin for Riches is Wheel of Fortune, Scaredy Pants is Fear Factor, Kerplunk is Wipeout, and so on. They're all fun in their own ways, have visually distinct designs, and all take place in various robotified cities that exist in the real world, which is just a neat way of showing how far Holmes has taken control. A big critique of mine, though, is that the ending is anticlimactic. You go into the sewers where Holmes is stationed to confront him, which is really odd since he's ruling the world and all. You'd think he'd be stationed in a giant evil villain tower or something, but, I mean, whatever. You don't face off against him in a game show or anything. Nah, that would be like the perfect way of ending the island. Rather, you go through locked doors that you solve by doing these kind of pipe puzzles. These are games, yes, but really just logic ones you'd solve in your free time rather than the types of games thematically tied to this island. After those, you find Holmes and plug a thumb drive into him so he can reboot into a nicer, less vengeful version of himself. It's kind of funny that after you stop Holmes, the robots above ground are still there, and they're just standing around disappointed that humanity will be treated equal to them. I liked that part. It's not a terrible way to end the story, but it just could have used more relevance to the setting.
How many realms are there in this game? Have any of you gotten an idea?
There's over 7 realms.
What? What?
Poptropica Realms is the other mini-quest I'm counting as an island for this ranking. I mean, I could count the Haunted House or the Earth Day Energy Hog mini-quests if you wanted, but they don't really have enough substance in my mind to be considered on the same level as islands. Poptropica Realms is such a unique case because, to me, It feels filled with enough content to be considered an island, yet acts so different from the legitimate ones. There's no quests other than breaking and building, not really any characters other than randomly generated animals that travel the landscape, and you don't have an end goal to reach other than when you feel like you're done. If it wasn't obvious enough, Realms was Poptropica's own version of Minecraft. It had a hint of some story, mostly connecting to Svaldfari, your building hammer, but most of the adventure is destroying terrain for its blocks, collecting ores to craft miscellaneous items, and constructing whatever builds your little Poptropican heart desires. I have to admit, it was relaxing and fun replaying this mini-quest. It has a multitude of biomes to set up base in, some minor survival elements, and the music was just so damn calming and serene that it actually made me feel super sad playing it. It was probably because I played it after I finished almost all the islands, so the music was sort of the send-off to my vast stream series. If you're wondering what I built in Poptropica Realms, it was a comfy cabin in a snowy winter forest. I will give that $20 purchase of the Steam version some credit, because it had my old account on it as well as my old Realm saves, and I was able to find my recreation of the Lonely Mountain from The Hobbit that I made way back in 2014. It was super nostalgic, and I'm really happy that it's been saved after all these years. Aside from the cozy game feel and the relaxing time I spent, I gotta put it here at 19 simply because that's all there is to it. It's not a bad thing. It's just that I'm grasping at straws trying to justify this mini-quest as an island since it's so vastly different of an experience to anything else in the game. But after this, there's no other non-islands that I'm including in the ranking, so let's continue.
Hello?
Zomberry Island is a great horror game for kids. I remember having the ever-loving piss scared out of me playing this before, and it doesn't even have jump scares or sound or anything like that. It's just a super solid zombie apocalypse scenario that's really effective at making it feel like the end of the world while still remaining PG. The island's main mission is to find an antidote to the illness that these zombies have fallen to and cure them. Atmospherically, it really sells the theme. The first section you start in is the tunnel leading into the quarantine zone, which starts off with bright lights and a guarding police force, but as you progress past the vehicle blockade, the brightness dims and the zombies grow in numbers. They don't like lights, so that's your major tool to avoid them, but it's very dark in the game and the zombies are always a constant threat that stalk you slowly and mindlessly through the city. When I first encountered this island, aside from fear, there was also a great sadness that I had learned about zombie scenarios in general. Since you find information on a few of the creatures before their turn, it led young me to the horrifying realization that zombies were not always the thoughtless drones they now are, but once had a life beforehand with friends, family, and a greater purpose other than eating brains. The twist of this island, which is mainly how it stays family friendly, is that none of these zombies are actually the undead, but just people who partook in an extremely sickening berry smoothie. That's why they're blue. It's not their rotting corpses losing oxygen. They just ate a bad batch of blueberries. Anyways, there's a zombie disco party you interrupt, some creepy subway tunnels to get chased through, an apocalypse that reminded me of Dying Light and the I Am Legend movie, this dude who just doesn't care that the end times are happening and is disassociating by playing video games, and a ton of other fun and spooky experiences. Downside to this island is the bonus quest, as it is to many others. There's a potential new outbreak that could spread throughout the city via rats or something, and so you go into the sewers and pump the antidote out of the city's grates, and yeah, you know the drill. It's a good end after the initial good end. Great island, just didn't really care for the bonus. Quite honestly, I'm not sure why Poptropica didn't make more of the chapter-based islands. They were very special in how they played out, and though I specifically remember getting slightly annoyed waiting for parts to release, it was always exciting when they finally came out. I think every single one of these chapter islands had their own merit of fun to them, and Mission Atlantis was no exception. The first part starts off with a seemingly regular expedition underwater to try and capture images of rare aquatic creatures. That's all fine and dandy until your little sub gets attacked by jellyfish and sunk to the bottom of the sea. Afterwards, you find yourself in front of what could only be described as the lost city of Atlantis. The deep sea setting is really sick on this island, and I just love the visuals of the sunken cyclopean structures that make up the buildings. The sea green and glowing pink colors of Atlantis feel so alien in both a figurative and literal sense. For a kid's game, this island was pretty intense too. Lots of eerie parts of the wrecked buildings combined with the darkness of the Haida-Pelagic zone make for a super claustrophobic and uninviting atmosphere. That's not even mentioning two spooky parts that freaked me the hell out when I first played. There's one in Chapter 2 where you have to lure a goblin shark into a tank while trying not to be attacked, and the other was in Chapter 3 where a Dunkleosteus specimen from the Devonian period gets loose and tries to eat you. I think any chance a kid's game gets to try and scare its players is a great one. Leaves a core memory for them later in their lives. I'm sure many first horror experiences came from situations like this and are looked back fondly on. I mean, that sure as hell is what I'm doing. I also love the twist at the end of the third part on this island. Instead of the typical understanding of Atlantis being a city that was consumed by the seas, this version is a gigantic UFO that crashed millions of years ago into the ocean. Your visit and realigning of the ship's sensors is what finally gets it to return to wherever it came from. It's pretty spectacular, and it's got a fun cutscene to end on as well. Really, my only complaint for this island is that it's just too short. Despite having 3 parts, each one just feels a little too quick to get through. First part, photograph fish. Second part, open big door. Third part, send this ship home. I think if some of the chapters, the last 2 specifically, had more areas to explore and secrets to discover about the ancient monument resting upon the floor of the ocean, it'd be way better. This is not to say this island is bad because it's short, it's just such an interesting concept that I'd love to see fleshed out more.
We've got to have money.
Back in 2013, when I first played Poptropica Island, it was one of my least favorites in the game. I didn't understand anything that was going on. It was really boring conceptually to me, and I was just glad it was over when I finished it. Playing it now, though, I realize I just wasn't ready for how much of a banger this one is. In Poptropica, you essentially have to help fix the game from being poorly developed. What game, you might ask? Well, the one you're playing, obviously. Poptropica is a goofy insight into the super stressful world of game development and feels incredibly relevant in its satirical take on the state of the game industry. I honestly feel like the exaggerated actions of the shitty corporate hacks ruining this game in-game don't even resemble jokes rather than something a company like Microsoft or Nintendo would do right now. These guys are the prevailing hindrance on your quest to fix Poptropica throughout the island, and have various aggravating positions that they impose upon you. You've got the focus tester, adding every single positive reaction from a select group of people, despite how bad of an idea it is. The safety inspector, who makes sure the game features no harmful or dangerous themes for the benefit of the players. The ad representative, who just wants to shove constant marketing and malware pop-ups down your throat for a quick buck. And the budget chief, who's willing to cut funding to parts of the game and its developers, regardless if they're necessary or not. To try and counteract these villains, you have to find the lead devs who've left and bring them back to resurrect the now broken game. Man, if only this were the case for today's Poptropica. It's a fun island more now than earlier, since I understand the jokes it's pulling much better, but I do have a few gripes. Number 1, I got soft locked because I didn't grab an item at a specific time and the game was broken for real until I restarted it and had to play through the entire thing again. Whether a flashpoint conversion glitch or one that was in the original game, I don't know. What I do know is that as accurate to the theme of the game as it was not fun. And number 2, the bonus quest is alright. I don't think it's bad. It's quite fun actually, where you get to play the robot fight game that was brought up throughout the island at multiple points, but there was a difficulty spike that made me salty. I beat it, so I really shouldn't complain, but yeah, it's aight. Anyways, really awesome island.
Who will crumble under the pressure? Find out here, right now on Total Drama Island.
Reality TV Island is a classic. Such a fun and creative experience to play on. Leagues better than that shitty sequel they spit out years after. We've come quite a far way from that, haven't we? I'd be sad that the list is almost over if it didn't take me so long to finish this damn video. Enough of that though. We're talking about OG reality TV. This island is incredibly short, and normally I'd be opposed to an island like that since you don't really get much to do on it. But here, I think it stays its welcome for the perfect amount of time. You start in a desert town, meet a washed-up celebrity in a roach-infested motel, and send in an application to compete on the reality TV television show. You get accepted, of course being the main character and all, and get sent into a riveting competition where you and several others compete in a multitude of challenging games. Some are much easier than others. I'm not bad at that fishing game, it doesn't work, I swear.
Come on, no. No. Come on!
Like I mentioned over an hour ago, it's styled like Survivor, which means you get to vote your competition off the island. If you win, that is. I don't know if it's always the case or I just randomly got unlucky each time, but in my live stream, if I even got second place in a single round, I was immediately voted off. I could be wrong, and it is randomly decided if you'll get voted off or not if you don't win the immunity for the elimination round, but I'd recommend for new players to lock the fuck in and bring home that gold, baby. There's a lot of fun mini games to play, whether it's hopping from falling pillars, catching coconuts, or gambling with geysers, and there's enough variety that the game doesn't feel super boring each time you play. That's why the shortness works for me. It's one of the most replayable islands. You don't get to do every event in a single run, and so it's fun to go back even after you've beaten the island to play it again and see what other competitions there are for you to beat. I like Reality TV Island a lot. It's not top 10 worthy for me, but man, would it be wrong not to have this one ranked super high in this list, especially despite its sequel that I won't bring up again after this paragraph.
The machine works? Do the kids know?
Well, yeah, the kids know.
That's great!
No, it's not that great.
Why?
I shrunk the kids.
What?
Shrink Ray Island has one of the coolest gimmicks out of all the islands in the game. I mean, it's super similar in concept to Virus Hunter Island, except this one came out first and was a lot more fun than swimming around some stranger's bowels. On this island, you're trying to help this pair of parents find their star student daughter because she's late to the science fair and has a project that'll blow the rest of the stands out of the water. However, when you check in on her apartment, some miscreant shrinks you down to the height of a piece of cheese. If a piece of cheese was this big. Your goal is to escape the now gigantic apartment and try to save the aforementioned student CJ from a conspiracy on her own project before it's too late. There's a lot of cool details about this island that I just enjoy so much, like the fact that you get to explore CJ's apartment before getting shrunk down. It gives you a sense of direction in the environment's layout, and it's really neat seeing everything again, but at a much bigger scale. The obstacles in the apartment make use of this unorthodox size you find yourself in as well, and I've just always enjoyed the creativity the developers put in how you interact with everything. Such examples include jogging on the bathroom sink handles to turn on the water, using static electricity to stick to balloons, riding a toaster lever as a launching mechanism, shoving trash around into a walkable path inside the trash can, and so on. This island also taught Child and me about Morse code and leet speak as well, so that was pretty interesting. I don't have much more to say about Shrink Ray other than it's really fun and imaginative. It uses an environment that would take you 15 seconds or less to pass through on any other island and morphs it into the majority of exploration on this one. I think it's super cool.
From the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me.
I wanted Astronight's Island to be in the top 10. I really, truly did. It was a favorite of mine, and going in, I had high hopes that it would still be a favorite of mine. Of course, many of those hopes were met. This island is fairly high in this ranking after all, but I just couldn't find it in myself to rank it higher than any of the islands that follow it from here. Setting-wise, this island is phenomenal. It's styled after medieval Europe with a coating of sci-fi, and the way it's executed is done in such a great Poptropican way. You know what I mean at this point. There's knights, royalty, and old-timey cottages, yet space travel is existent, as well as cybernetics, robots, and even aliens on the moon. It really is completely confident in what it wants to do for the look and feel. I think the rocket flying is fun. I enjoyed the bosses you have to beat to achieve weapons of mystical Dark Age technology, and the villain in this, Binary Bard, is probably the best written villain in the entirety of Poptropica. There's such a haunting mystique to him, where you don't see him for the majority of the game, but characters mention how much of a threat to the galaxy he could become if too much power were to fall into his hands. There's a twist villain nature to his character, and I don't know if I'd call it a big twist now, but then again, I only knew because I got the twist in my original playthrough. It does spell it out to you on this puzzle door leading into his space castle, but still, a great twist for the kids. Now, why oh why do I have this not in the top 10? It sounds awesome. It is. Really, it's a few things that hold it back. Really, I guess it could just be grouped into one thing. I was confused for a good portion of my gameplay. Call it a me problem or whatever, and I'd agree with you, but there were a few sections where I felt I was taking far too much time and not progressing at all, and it killed a bit of my fun. Like that door puzzle I mentioned earlier. It took me around 15 minutes to figure it out, and the only reason I did was because my chat told me how to do it. That wasn't the worst of it though. The first half, which really surprised me that it was considered half of the experience when I always thought it was like a quarter, has a part where you need to get a password for the secret society. I just couldn't figure out what to do, where to go, or who to talk to, and it wasn't until clicking an NPC that I thought I already chatted with that the quest was able to go on. Again, I will not contest anyone who calls that a skill issue. Does not make it a bad island, far from it. I just would be lying if I said I enjoyed it more than the following ones. The next of these highly ranked islands is SOS Island. This one is such a fun thrill ride and was super stressful when I first played. Combining the plots of Moby Dick and Titanic, a whale-watching ship in the Arctic crashes and starts taking on water. There isn't a relaxing introduction where you're on the boat enjoying the vacation or a slow burn storytelling style that leads into this catastrophe. You drop in from your blimp and a crewmate starts telling you that the ship is sinking and that there's passengers on board who are going to die unless you can save them from the wreck. There's such a tangible tension to this island where you find the last remaining people on board one at a time, and after each rescue the boat fills with more water and sinks a lot deeper into the freezing ice. I think it's one of the most interesting scenarios in the entirety of Poptropica, since it takes place in one setting that is constantly changing layout. First, the ship isn't in too bad of a spot. Then it tilts. Now its bow is submerged. It's gone vertical. It just continuously gets worse and harder to navigate for you, and from a narrative and gameplay perspective, I love how much of an emergency they make this island have, even though none of these characters are going to drown and or freeze to death, since this game is targeted towards kids. It's not long, but for the short experience that it is quite the fun ride. It's also the first island to ever have those dumbass membership-only bonus quests. I've gotten real sick of bringing them up, but luckily for you and I, there's only one more island ahead of this one that features a bonus quest, so thank God I don't have to keep bringing them up. As the first one of these, did they at least try to make it appealing so you could get your parents to buy you a membership? No. It's a good cause, I guess. You clean the oil spill that the ship is leaking into the ocean. That's it. It doesn't add to the story like I thought it would have. It only adds the ship is contaminating water and you gotta fix it. Again, good initiative for cleaning the ocean, but it is very boring. I dug a bunch of points on this island for this mediocre bonus stage, but I mean, come on. I just can't. It's too great of an island to do that to. I've always had a great fondness of Steamworks Island. Poptropica, as I've constantly mentioned, has this great knack of taking separate, interesting concepts and combining them in a really creative way, and I think Steamworks Island is so full of that imaginative quality. This one takes a futuristic steampunk city setting and throws in a good dose of vegetable apocalypse. The first time I played this island, it captured an immense feeling of dread, seeing what looked like a once lively city of gears and valves turn into a ghost town with overgrown vines and sprouts leaking from cracks and crevices in every street and every building. The only neutral life forms to be found are artificial, just robotic companions and workers roaming the dead city. What you do find that actually counts as biological life are aggressive plant monsters that infest the region. There's a very interesting lore and mystery to the state that this island is in, and the biggest part of the adventure of Steamworks is following the way to answers. You want to find Sprocket's owner. You want to know why carnivorous flora nests throughout the district. You want to figure out why only this man died and where everyone else is. You want to use this sick-as-fuck walker mech to beat the ever-loving pulp out of these leafy little shits. Did I mention that? The third act of this island is super fun because you get to deal justice to these plant monsters with a mech that gives big ATRT vibes. It's a great island. What more can I say? It's got some tricky parts to solve, at least for me, and some annoying boss fight stuff sometimes, but overall, I think Steamworks sews a great narrative, a tense atmosphere, and a creative setting into your brain to grow and blossom. Like a flower. Plant reference. You see, it's because there's a bunch of plants in this game. Mystery Train Island is a real unique one. There's a few things about it that I particularly like. First, the clear Murder on the Orient Express influence. This mystery on the train is not a murder one, but the inspiration is very much there. It's an exciting scenario of finding out who committed the crime on this locomotive, where all the criminals on board are unable to escape from potential prosecution. Second, I really like the historical fiction present here. You're on your way to the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, and on your train ride, suspects for the mystery include such recognizable faces as Nikola Tesla, Mark Twain, Susan B. Anthony, George Ferris, and so on. I like the history lessons you get with these interrogations against these characters, since their alibis revolve around the accomplishments and lives the actual people had, thus marking them innocent of the island's caper. Third, the detective elements are fun to utilize. You get to press on certain topics that you've learned about to the characters riding the train, and while it's just a glorified version of the regular text bubbles that you'll come to be familiar with in Poptropica, its presentation heightens the tension of the story and makes it much more apparent who the perp likely or unlikely is. The great mystery that you're trying to solve is that an invention of Edison's has been stolen by someone on the train, and you have to figure out who done it. It's kind of funny that if you didn't already know who did the theft like I did, you could figure out the villain based on if they're an actual historical figure or not. That said, I love the event that kicks off the mystery, the clues and subversions along the way, the reveal of certain people who actually existed, the twist on why Edison's device was stolen, the section where all the information and leads you've been following come together in a super satisfying way like in the movies, and the final chase sequence where you try to stop the culprit from executing their master plan in the World's Fair. It all culminates in a perfect ending to the island, where the case is closed and the bad guy is caught. This one's a keeper in the collection of great islands for sure. Just to get a weird thought out of the way, has anyone else felt that Wild West Island feels like a later entry in the Poptropica lifespan? It really isn't. I mean, it was the 17th island to be released. Is that just me? This has nothing to do with what I'm going to say about it right now, but it is just a random thought I had on my mind. Wild West Island is quite a fun romp. You and your trusty steed Elmer get to roam the mesa and take care of outlaws that threaten the town of Dusty Gulch and the surrounding desert. I have so many fond memories when this originally came out, and it was still awesome on replay. It fulfills a ton of stuff that you'd probably want to do as a cowboy in the Old West. There's cattle herding, minecart riding, buying from snake oil salesmen, spittoon competitions, gold panning, sharpshooting, and even gambling. It's not poker or blackjack gambling. No, this is slapjack gambling. Apparently this is a real card game for kids, and though I didn't know that at the time, I remember trying to teach my friends in elementary school this one. It always ended up with the joke of them hitting me instead of the cards, because if you didn't know already, my name is actually Jack. Sorry for that tangent. Back to Wild West. It's an incredibly endearing island, mainly due to its near-perfect presentation. From the mechanics of horse riding to the cool old map layout and the incredibly fun shootout sections courtesy of El Mustachio and his gang, there wasn't a moment in this island where I felt bored with what it had to offer. I really don't have anything negative to say about it. We're really at the point in this ranking where I'm mostly out of complaints and the hierarchy is based on just what I like more than the others. Nabuti Island, don't laugh, is my second favorite island out of the first 10, if that makes any sense. I feel like this is one that I always had wonderful memories of. Back in elementary school, we'd get free time in the computer lab, and I'd always go to Poptropica. I didn't look up any guides or anything, but I specifically remember taking a ton of time to finish this island specifically, and I'd be surrounded by my friends who were trying to help me figure out how to beat it. It's not even that hard of an island, I just had very little logical sense of the puzzles it offered. Whoa, what the hell? I guess we're doing this dumbass flashback thing again to save time. There's a few Brantain islands that I actually enjoyed plenty that make it into the top half of this list. Just 2 out of 9. Hopefully we don't have any more of those, Jesus. Anyways, where was I? Oh, what Past Me was referring to was Red Dragon Island and this one, Nabuti Island. Nabuti is by far the best Brantain island in this game. Maybe I should have just started the paragraph with that. It's so good at not feeling like a completely different continuity that I didn't even know it was its own story outside of Poptropica. Its origin is a choose-your-own-adventure book called The Lost Jewels of Nabuti. In hindsight, it should have been obvious to me since there's a damn choose-your-own-adventure building in the main hub of the island that advertises the series, but in my defense, it doesn't show anything about Nabuti Island having a book of its own. I literally, up until researching more for this ranking, thought it was just a random sponsorship or something that the Poptropica devs had put permanently on this island, and that it had nothing to do with the main story. But then again, that's a good thing that I didn't notice. The art style doesn't feel out of place, the story is totally adjustable for your character to fit in, and other than this one treehouse, the product placement doesn't feel blatantly in your face. It was the first attempt from Poptropica to do one of these collaborations, and it was the best. Shouldn't have fixed what wasn't broken, because none after, other than Red Dragon of course, are islands I would consider good. Enough of that though. I haven't even talked about what I like so much about Nabuti Island. Other than the fun name that I'm guessing is based on Djibouti, it's a great adventure across the continent of Africa. By the way, I'm sorry, I said I wouldn't mention it again, but I just want to bring up how much better of an African adventure this island is than reality TV Wild Safari. Okay, now I'm really done bringing it up again. You get to travel Indiana Jones map style to different regions of the land, from the Great Pyramids of Giza in the north to the Blue Nile Falls in the east, and down to the Diamond Mine of the south. I always loved the geography lessons this island taught me about Africa and some of the history throughout the continent. Poptropica, aside from being a unique and fun kids game, made edutainment a common practice throughout a ton of its islands, and this is one of the most educational ones I feel. Aside from learning African culture, there's fun puzzles like the one in Ethiopia where you have to transport cargo in a certain order, the one in the DRC where you play Mancala with an older gentleman, and the few in the pyramids where you have to read the hieroglyphics to understand how to navigate several traps. If you know anything about me, my favorite part was the safari tour. In this part of the game, you need to photograph a bunch of animals that would be seen on a canyon safari. It's not like the most fun part or anything, but what did you expect me to find the most enjoyable? I'm the guy who made this. I could go on and on about Nabuti Island. Like, I didn't even mention the main storyline about returning jewels to this museum or the wacky twist ending, but we're almost done with this very long ranking, so let's get on with it. Remember my section on Jade Scarab Island? Flashbang! Sorry. Flashback. There is an island I think serves as a far superior point to end on for the game, but we got a ways to go before we get to it. Alright, you heard past me. Now we're to it. It, of course, being Escape from Pelican Rock Island. In my opinion, this is genuinely the best island prior to the last several that were ever made, and would have been a fantastic finale to end on. I don't think it really works as a finale island, considering that it's not made to be one, but it's just such a fun and solid Poptropica experience that filled me with far more entertainment than the true last island of the game. Now that I think of it, they really should have had at least some kind of proper goodbye island. Nothing long, just a thanks for everything and it was fun while it lasted kind of island. Oh well. Let's talk about Pelican Rock, aside from its chronological position. Here you're having a lovely day when a thief runs by. Trying to be the good Samaritan you are and stop this burglar, you chase him. Once you catch up, you find this criminal to look almost exactly like you. He frames you, and you're sent to prison for crimes you didn't commit. Now, you've got to, say it with me now, escape from Pelican Rock! Did you all stand up in unison and say that with me?
Brother, this guy stinks!
Anyways, yeah, it's a jailbreak game now. A super sick one too. It follows a structure similar to games like A Way Out, where you have to spend multiple days in prison trying to figure out the perfect scenario to escape imprisonment. You trade sticks of gum for favors instead of cigarettes, talk to the other inmates in the workout yard, cause riots at lunch hour, chisel away at cracks in the wall, press license plates, steal tools, ruin the cook's mashed potatoes, and so much more. These actions that lead to your freedom follow the schedule of the prison day, where you have to plan out certain events in certain orders to make sure you can pull off your daring getaway, and it's just so damn cool. Even when it got slightly tedious doing the same thing every day just to get one step closer to leaving, I didn't care because it felt really satisfying making the gradual progress that it would more realistically take to exit a high surveillance prison complex without being noticed. Genuinely one of my favorite islands in the game, and the last truly good island to come out of Poptropica.
We strongly believe that spirits are indeed real and have set out to prove it.
Ghost Story Island is by far the spookiest among the archipelago of Poptropica, and I love it for that. I absolutely enjoyed my time playing this island now and consider it one of the best in the franchise, but I remember having a hard time getting through it when I was younger. The sole reason, as you could guess, is that it scared me pretty good. The whole island's theme revolves around the ghosts that haunt it and their unfinished business, and it features a slew of eerie locations, paranormal hunting equipment, and a mysterious and tragic tale to unravel. While the ghosts are far less sinister than I remember them being, there is still quite a creepy vibe to this island, seeing and knowing the stories of the souls that still roam its abandoned corners. Some foggy nights you'll see the old lighthouse keeper's lantern softly glowing up and down the stairs in the distance. The local bank emanates the clanging of a pickaxe beneath the vault, echoes of a heist to never prevail. The graveyard hosts a specter in black who lays a rose upon the same etched stone each night, separated from a cherished one, seemingly in death as well. The ways that all these phantoms dedicate their afterlives contribute to the full story that unwinds as the island goes on, and it's fun discovering the spirits with items such as thermal goggles or EMF readers. Hemlock Harbor hosts quite the history to piece together, and for reasons yet unknown, the magistrate wants it all kept under wraps. It's got spooky scares, a ghoulish atmosphere, and a well-written narrative that culminates in a bittersweet end to the story of the characters on this island. Oh, before I forget, I feel the need to mention a scare that far exceeds the other ones listed throughout this ranking. It was one of those rare instances of sound utilized in-game before the game fully committed to sound, and I'm quite ashamed to admit that even though I knew it was coming, it still got me now as it did back then. Please don't rub it in my face that I got spooked by a game made for children. I beg of you.
There's the light in the lighthouse. That's what they said, is the lighthouse keeper.
Are you looking for someone?
Oh god, that actually scared the shit out of me right there. I was like waiting for it to happen and it didn't, and I was like, wait, what? That's a good jump scare. That's a really good jump for a kid's game. That's a good jump scare.
Leave there your cunning
conveniences. Set out the deed and sit.
I think about Vampire's Curse Island a lot. I'm a sucker for the gothic theme they've got going on with it, and I love how the story progresses and how they make the villain. Only criticism, it's too short. I wanted way more of it. Continuing on. The inciting incident upon visiting this island is that one of the villagers, Katya, and her boyfriend have gone missing, and the terror of this revelation is only strengthened considering that the town neighbors a dark, twisted forest that leads to the castle of the dreaded Count Bram. Your job, of course, is to rescue these teens from the undead noble. The atmosphere is just killer here. So many utilizations of blood red and sinister green in the color palette just add to the haunting environment, not to mention the consistent thunderstorm raining down on the dark night. There's even sound for the thunder. This was one of those islands released before the full in-game audio, so this was, of course, the rare treat that it was for Poptropica fans. The castle that Bram inhabits is incredibly sinister and dominating in presence, both when viewed from afar and seen up close, and the decor of high bookshelves, fancy chandeliers, and impressive taxidermy sets the scene of the lavish lifestyle this vampire had before his turn. Speaking of the vampire, I was a big fan of the backstory they give to Count Bram. In his own castle laboratory, he's been trying to find a cure for his vampirism as he's been alive for far too long. His wife Annabelle had passed long before him, and all he wanted was to join her. That's why he kidnaps poor Katya. She looks incredibly similar to his wife, and in his delusional state, as he wasn't able to find a cure, he believes she's returned to him. As I said, it's not a long island, but what it lacks in length, it makes up for in the genuinely intriguing and sad backstory of this vampire and his mission to essentially end his own immortal life. It's a darker topic for a kid's game, and I appreciate that they don't shy away from the idea that immortality is the vampire's curse, particularly so when you outlast the ones that you love. This island is also the last one in this ranking with a bonus quest, and I gotta say, it's one of the best ones. Granted, it's not a lot, but it's pretty good. After you find the cure for the Count and send him to be with Annabelle, you reunite Katya and her boyfriend Christopher. Unfortunately, Christopher was turned into a vampire by the Count off-screen and gives you a bite to the neck. Unfortunately, you're confronted by the vampire hunter Cactus Von Garlic, and he's out for blood. Vampire blood. He's trying to murder you viciously is what I'm insinuating. It's actually a fun little side quest where you have to gather the same ingredients you found before to cure vampirism, but this time it's in super hard to reach spots that only the vampire bat form you're now in could fit in. It's a neat way of backtracking to areas you've been in and exploring them in ways you never were able to, all while getting shot at by Poptropica's insane Van Helsing. It's really not a bad bonus quest. I actually liked it quite a bit, and I feel it adds a fun epilogue to the main story. What an awesome island Vampire's Curse is. I feel pretty confident putting it in the top 5.
That's right. We're going back in time to the first time to get time off the menu.
I was a little bummed that none of the classic islands made it up here to the top 10. I suppose Nabuti kinda counts as a classic island, but I'm talking about the OGs. The first 5, to be specific. Not a single one of them I found to be enjoyable enough for top 10. All except for one. Time Tangled Island. This one was a favorite of every Poptropica players back then, and I'm sure it's still a favorite of theirs now. This island has such a simple yet fun premise, which is to go back in time and, well, untangle it, as you'd likely guess from the title. You have to go through different eras of time across various geographical regions and find important historical artifacts that have been misplaced. Not only is it super satisfying fixing these timelines once you collect all the lost objects and return them to their correct pieces of history, but it's a fantastic lesson as well on different figures and regions for kids to learn. And adults too, maybe. I feel like not many people know about Menlo Park or the Mali Empire, but if you don't, this is a fun start to learn about them. To be fair though, I wouldn't take all the historical lessons as solid fact here. It's not because you're interjected into these time periods. No, obviously that's inaccurate. But, for example, if you go to the 1800s and visit Lewis and Clark, a black man named York there will refer to himself as their servant. I believe there is a more accurate term to reflect the position that York was in other than servant. Besides the occasional inaccuracy, such as that crucial one, I do like the breadth of these eras and the historical events taking place within them. You get to see the construction of the Statue of Liberty in France, the climb to the peak of Mount Everest, the mighty rule of the Aztec Empire, and much, much more. I also love the beginning and end where you meet your future self, one in a dystopian hellscape caused by the time tangle, and one in a utopian heavenscape caused by your intervention. It's a short but incredibly sweet island, made even better by an HD and audio remaster many years after its release. If you're ever wanting to give this game a try, this is a great first island.
Zeus! Zeus!
Ever since I was little, I've loved Greek mythology. There was always a fascination I had with the gods and heroes of those stories, the monsters they fought, and the explanations of how the earth was formed. It was all super cool to me. Besides Disney's Hercules, which still rocks by the way, there weren't many pieces of media I found accessible at that age to satiate my intrigue in Greek mythology, but that would quickly change, all thanks to Poptropica's Mythology Island. From the moment I first arrived on the island to the several times I've replayed it, Mythology Island always held a high position amongst my favorite bits of Poptropica. Your quest here is to repay the mighty Zeus after taking a golden apple from one of his trees. The goal is to collect objects sourced from legendary creatures who reside on the island, and pretty much all these missions are super fun. You get to explore the labyrinth of the Minotaur, solve riddles of the Sphinx, battle the Hydra in its sea cave, tame Cerberus. I mean, come on! This whole island basically checked off a to-do list of things I wanted to interact with as a myth-obsessed kid, and it's still very satisfying collecting the items in all their respective realms. The island is incredibly educational as well, featuring a whole museum dedicated to the pantheon of Olympus and each god's representation and some of their symbols. For instance, Athena can be called upon for her wisdom by looking to olive trees, or you can access the underworld by offering Hades pomegranates. The characters that you meet are really fun to interact with as well, especially since, other than some of the graphic details of actual Greek mythology, many of their representations are fairly accurate. Biggest point in particular, Zeus. Some pieces of media, like the aforementioned movie Hercules, tend to paint Zeus as a noble, kind, and loving god, probably due to his physical and hierarchical similarities with God from Christianity. But in the actual myths, Zeus is a psychotic egomaniac that rules with an iron fist, strikes constant fear into the hearts of his people, and does abhorrent acts against women on a weekly basis. Poptropica doesn't go that far, but they do make him the big bad villain of this story, and one with an especially epic boss fight at the end of the game. He's such a genuine threat of an antagonist that he doesn't even stick to just this island to be one. By the way, I'm referring to Supervillain Island if you guys didn't get the hint way back in that section. Aside from all that, this island, like Time Tangled, was especially great to revisit thanks to a remaster of the graphics and the music that came later. I will have to give a warning though. If you want the full experience of the original island and or the upgraded version, make sure you play the ones on Flashpoint. I played the online version a little while back that existed on the Cool Math Games website, and it was dumbed down a shitload. So much so that they just cut out entire puzzles and skipped sections that weren't even that hard to explore in the first place. I have no idea why they nerfed it so much, considering that I figured it out on my own when I was 9, but yeah. Heed my warning and play the archived superior version on Flashpoint. Thinking over all the islands that I played, there were some I knew from the get-go that would be amongst the highest contenders. Mythology, Time Tangled, and Vampire's Curse are a select few I instantly placed right in the top 10, knowing I enjoyed them so much that they had to be there. But there was one island that surprised me quite a bit. One I didn't think would be as high as it is here. It was an island I had an awesome time with when it first came out, but at that point, I never mentally put it right next to the greats. Oh, how wrong I was for that. My revisit only got better this playthrough, and I can say with sheer confidence that Survival Island deserves to stand right here in second place. It's one of the relatively newer islands released in Poptropica's lifespan, but God does it make a strong impression. It was the first of the chapter-based islands that I've discussed, where it would be released in parts every several months or so. I believe at the time it took about a year or more to get the complete package for this island, which was annoying, granted, but like I said with Atlantis, you'd always be waiting for the next part to tie into the cliffhangers you'd be left on. Survival is the longest of the chapter islands, with 5 parts in total. I think the 2 extra parts helped the game immensely, and as you could tell, it makes it the best chapter island. The first 3 parts set up your goal to survive after you've crash-landed into a forest mid-blizzard. First, you have to build yourself shelter and fire to stay warm from the cold. Second, you have to find a way to feed yourself so that you don't starve to death on the frozen taiga. Third, you come across an old tower that could save your life if you're able to establish radio contact from it. These chapters are great and feature fun mechanics like fishing, battery crafting, and learning the basic principles of starting a campfire, but the 4th and 5th chapters are really where this island shines. They continue the theme of survival, but instead of staving off wild animals and the elements, you're trying to sneak out of this crazy trophy hunter's mansion. That trophy hunter is none other than Myron Van Buren. He is by far my favorite Poptropica villain ever. He's not too original, since he has clear visual inspiration from Jumanji's deranged huntsman Van Pelt, but I love Jumanji, and I love the cartoonishly evil character Van Pelt, so it's just a match made in heaven for a fun video game villain. He is the one who rescues you from the outdoors, but he brings you to his creepy-ass mansion full of taxidermized animals, many of whom I would assume were killed illegally, and then he roofies your steak. Chapter 4 delves into a stealth game where you have to find a way to escape this madman's manor, and as fun and tense as it is, the 5th and final chapter ends with such a bang. It is revealed that Van Buren is not satisfied with hunting wild animals. He wants a target far harder for him to catch, a smarter, trickier target than an antelope or a lion. He wants you. What plays out is a scenario akin to The Most Dangerous Game, which, if you've never read it, please do. It's one of my all-time favorite short stories ever, so you could imagine that I had a blast replaying this island with the reverence to that story I had in mind. I absolutely love Survival Island. It's a great playthrough length, each chapter is completely distinct yet similar enough to justify their existences, the story progression through the chapters works wonders, and overall, I'd be happy to give this first place. Hell, it probably deserves it. The next island isn't nearly as polished, it doesn't have music or a high-definition screen size, and I'd probably say the story is an average one compared to the others in these top few, but damn it, there's no way in hell I'd let any other island in this list top it.
I just got up and walked to the door, and I saw it.
The moment I had this list in mind, there was no contest for the winner. I immediately put it up at the top with no intention of changing that placement. There is no island prior to this one that I hold dearer in my heart. I have a distinctly fond memory of playing it when it came out in December of 2010. I was staying with family for the holidays, and on a day of us just doing nothing, I snuggled up all cozy under my blankets, borrowed my mom's laptop, and played the newest addition to Poptropica, Cryptids Island. I had no idea what the hell a cryptid was or what the premise was going to be, but I loaded it up, jumped in, and had the absolute time of my life playing through the island all day. There is a ton about this island that stuck in my brain and still brought me joy to this day. One part that stuck was the fairly large use of sound effects in the island at the time. One of those was used for a pretty effective jump scare, but most included entries in this museum that served as little anecdotes about the main creatures you'd be attempting to prove the existence of. The world traveling feature was another part I thoroughly enjoyed, particularly with how different the locations you adventured to were. I will never forget driving a Jeep around Puerto Rico and searching the humid jungles for the chupacabra. I will never forget climbing the perilous cliffs of Mount Everest in search of the Yeti. I will never forget the Scottish pub and the traversal above and below Loch Ness for proof of its sea monster. I especially will never forget the creepy bike ride through the Pine Barrens in the hopes to glimpse the gruesome sight of the Jersey Devil, aka my favorite cryptid ever, mostly due to this game. The climax where you rescue Bigfoot is fun, even though the villain that has captured him is not really that intimidating of a threat. And as dumb as it is saying out loud, I enjoyed the ending where I let this billionaire keep his own offered prize money to make a sanctuary for the Sasquatch. It is pretty weird looking at it now that this super rich guy is using every last penny of his money to look for animals that don't exist in real life, but hey, I guess in this universe, since I do prove the existence of cryptids, it's like he's donating to endangered species or something. That's always cool. The way this eccentric man, Mr. Muse, talks about his interest in these animals was so infectiously passionate about the subject that 9-year-old me almost immediately became obsessed with cryptids, folklore, monsters, whatever similar after beating the island. I will be the first to admit, this story is not the strongest. The characters aren't the most memorable. The scenario isn't all that different to the crazy shit that happens on other Poptropican islands. I don't care. I'm positive this island changed me as a person, that I potentially would not have been the person I am today without it, the person I really like. I truly cannot say that about anything else in this list. Cryptids Island is the best Poptropica island. Man, that was a long one, wasn't it? If any of you made it this far in the video, thank you very much. This was definitely my most ambitious project to date, at least script and duration-wise, and I think right now I'm good making shorter videos for a bit. Not that it would be hard to make a video shorter than whatever the hell length this one turns out to be at the end once I'm done editing it, but I really do hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to see what you guys think about it and or your own personal opinions about Poptropica in the comments, because, I mean, I really like seeing what people have to say, especially after this extensive of a list. So, anyways, I'll catch you guys next time. Have a good night, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever the hell time it is, wherever you are. Have a good one. Bye-bye. And the penny whistle is like such a simple instrument, because I have one actually in real life. You know what? I might have it on me. Hold on. Well, we'll make this immersive, okay? We'll make this immersive. All right, check it out. So yeah, I've got one. All right, we're gonna. This is music to Nessie's ears. All right, we're gonna play this. Look, guys, it's Nessie. It worked.